Shalom. My name is Adam, and I welcome you to the Parable of the Vineyard. Every day, Yahweh is waking up a remnant, a group of people who are coming out of deceptions, realizing our walk is to consist of faith and obedience to His righteous commands. Each week, we read through and examine a portion of the Torah, allowing the Spirit of the Most High to guide, teach, and open our eyes and ears to the wondrous matters out of His law. Join us as we seek to be refined by His Word, preparing ourselves for the return of our King of Kings, being faithful and obedient, walking in His way, truth, and life. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Parable of the Vineyard YouTube live stream of our Torah portion reading. My name is Adam, your host, and I welcome you. This is week 13, and we're here. The book of Exodus. This is my favorite book. This Torah portion is probably one of my favorites. This one and the first week in Genesis, they're probably pretty close contenders. And then the first portion, Leviticus, they're like, I think there's like some of the most important ones. This one just happens to be my favorite. And, you know, not a lot of teaching in this one, a lot of reading. In this one, we get there's so much history and backstory that we get to how they got into slavery. How did we go from Joseph reigning in Egypt to they're just all in slavery? There's kind of a gap there from the end of Genesis to the beginning of Exodus, and you're like, well, that escalated quickly. Like, what happened? And so if you're like me, you're like, well, I want to know what happened. Guess what? It's been preserved for us, and I'm excited to read about it. Every year, this Torah portion, I'm like, yeah, I see it. It's coming, and here it is. So, anyways, if you can't tell, I'm super excited. Let's pray real quick. Father, we just come before you in Yahushua's name, and we bless you, and thank you for allowing us to gather each week to study your Torah. As David said, Father, open our eyes that we may behold the wonderful things written in your Torah. And Father, we just ask that your Ruach would guide us as we study together, and that we'd grow together and be hearers and doers of your law, your Torah, Father, and follow the footsteps of Messiah. Walk as he walked. In his name, Yahushua HaMashiach, we do pray. Amen. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to do a little shofar, and this shofar blast is for my new friend, Daniel, that I met up in New Hampshire. Daniel, I don't know if you're listening to you, buddy. It was great blowing shofars with you, so let's do this one together. Hang on. So, those of you that watch each week, last week, as you saw, we were in, we filmed in Virginia Beach. We had some ministry work that took us from Missouri to the East Coast, and Virginia was just one of our stops. But had a blessed time. Got to meet a great brother in the faith that I've known for years, Dave Courier. He helps run the website and does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. We've known each other for like 4 years, and or at least online, and we've never met. And so I got a chance to go up to New Hampshire, as it's properly pronounced, New Hampshire. Got to meet him and his lovely wife, Meg, and their family, and their Torah, their Shabbat group, which is amazing. I got to meet some great people. And so if any of you are in the New Hampshire, southern Maine area, let me know, and I'll connect you with Dave. They've got a great group there. Which is something I want to talk about at the end of the Torah portion. I've got a really big ministry announcement that I'd like to share with you. Something I've been, I haven't made public really, but I've been talking with the elders and a lot of people in our local fellowship about for the last year or so. But it's time that we're going to start realizing this. And this trip to the East Coast reminded me of how I believe how important this next phase of the ministry that I do believe Yah is guiding us through. So if you want to stick to the end, and I'd like to share that with you, kind of the vision of the future of the ministry. So with that, let's get started. And also got to meet Garen and his family with Daniel. Awesome family. Just blessings to y'all. So let's get started. Let's get into the book of Exodus. That's enough talk from me. So this is going to cover Exodus 1:1 through 6:1, kind of a bigger Torah portion and a lot of reading. So this is going to be probably a longer one. But stick around. I really feel like this is just so weird. There's information in here that is so relevant for our times today, because we've made the connection that we are, though we've been freed by Messiah, by his blood in the spiritual realm, here in the physical, we're still in captivity. We're still dispersed. We still haven't been gathered to the Most High, which he promises to do. Deuteronomy 30 is the greatest promise. He says, when you come back to me, you, with all your heart, soul, and mind, and your children, when you come back to my Torah, which Messiah came to regather us back to him, that then he'll gather us. Anyways, the point is that I do believe that America specifically is end times Egypt. However, really the whole world is spiritually Egypt, much like I do believe specifically one place is Babylon, Mystery Babylon, the mother of all harlots. But like, yeah, is America Babylon? Sure. Is London Babylon? Sure. New York City's Babylon? Yeah, absolutely. Are all these different places around the world Babylon? Yeah, they're all daughters of Babylon, right? But the point is there's so much in the story of the Exodus that relates to today. That's probably why I'm most excited about this book. So anyways, let's get on with it. Enough from me. I've enough introduction. Let's get with the actual Torah portion. This is what you're here for the word, not for me chatting. All right, Exodus 1:1. Now these are the names of the children of Yasharel, which came into Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, just in case you knew. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, it's Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob, were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Mitzrayim, or Egypt, already. And so one thing that I love in these last days is the Most High has made many different manuscripts available for us to test and to glean from. As far as the 66 book canon, the Bible that we're used to, we have, of course, the Masoretic, which is where like the KJV comes from, the ESV, RSV, ISR, all the different versions, they come from that manuscript. There's also the Septuagint, which is the Greek manuscript. And then we have the Aramaic as well. So, and then you also have the Samaritan Pentateuch. So there's like really 4 major ones that we can test. And so sometimes what we find is there's differences in Scripture. So what we just read is that all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Mitzrayim already. Now, in the book of Jasher, it actually lists these people. But nevertheless, in the Septuagint, we have here, it says, but Joseph was in Egypt, and all the souls born of Jacob were 75. So here's like, some people are like, oh, we've got a contradiction and red flags, but I think we have to just understand that it says here there were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Mitzrayim already. So more than likely it's that the Septuagint is counting the souls from Joseph, where in this one it kind of separates the 70 plus Joseph and his family. Just an observation, but the overarching point that I want to bring up is just because different versions have what would seem to be contradictions, I think we have to understand that the word of the Most High, at least this is just where I come from, this is my opinion, the word of the Most High is living, it's active, it's his ways that he's left for us. However, he's allowed it to be in the hands of men, and men have had different translations and have removed and added and things like that. But what I love about it is that it tells the same story overall. So while some people will, what Messiah says is strain at a gnat and swallow a camel, we have to realize the texts say the same thing. It's the same story, with maybe someone's birth, age at death, in this version a little different than that version, or here 70 versus 75. And so some people would be like, well, I'm gonna go with the Septuagint, and I'm gonna throw the Masoretic completely out because of a contradiction like this, or vice versa. And I don't think that's what the Most High wants us to do. This is my opinion. I believe he's left us multiple witnesses, multiple manuscripts that we can glean from each one, and no need to throw it out. So like, for example, I say this often, but like in the book of Matthew, when it's talking about how Judas sold Messiah for 20 pieces of silver, it said, as it was written in the book of Jeremy, the prophet, with Jeremiah, which is wrong. It's Zechariah. But so with that error, do we throw out the book of Matthew? Well, no, of course. I think we have to understand that it was probably a scribal error or a translation error or something like that. So that we should just have some grace with these manuscripts that were left for us, and to know that the Most High has given us multiple witnesses. And so we read the book of Matthew, and we see it jives with Luke and with Mark and with John, and it's kind of the same thing we have for the Bible itself. So anyways, a little rabbit hole there, but I just wanted to share that with you. So let's keep going. We're at Exodus chapter 1, verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Yasharel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. And I was talking to Brother Lyndon. He's at our local fellowship. He's the worship leader, and Left and Right Ministries. We play a lot of their songs at the end of our Torah portions and videos. But anyways, he was like, I'm reading through Numbers, and I'm looking at like how many were actually numbered, and when they came out of Egypt, and it's like, we look at here, so when they came into Egypt, there were 70 souls, and then when they leave, which is like just 3 generations later, it's not quite 400 years. 400 years, that timer of the promise to Abraham that they'd be in bondage for 400 years, that clock actually started with him all the way till the Exodus. So they're actually only in slavery for, I think, like 200 years or something. Anyways, 3 generations. But in 3 generations, they went from 70 souls to like millions. And that is ridiculous. It's for those of you who are like math majors, please, somebody write up a draw up like a multiplication table of what that would actually look like. I mean, these families were probably having like 10, 15, 20 kids. I don't know. But how much the Most High increased them is just magnificent. And no wonder we're about to read that they're like scared, like, what's going on here? Now there arose up a new king over Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Yasharel, that's Israel, are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that, when there falls out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Yasharel. And the Mitzrayim made the children of Yasharel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them to serve was with rigor. And the king of Mitzrayim spoke to the Ivri, that's the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When ye do the office of a midwife to the Ivrite women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not as the king of Mitzrayim commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Mitzrayim called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Ivrit, again, the Hebrew women, are not as the Mitzrite women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere or before the midwives come in unto them. Therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he made them houses. We're gonna define that, because you're like, so that he built them houses? Like, didn't they already have houses? And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. So again, like I mentioned at the outset, like, wow, that escalated quickly. Joseph is in charge, and now they're just completely in slavery, and they're destroying their kids. Like, I don't know about you. I want to know the details. Like, how did that happen? And is there anything that we can learn from how that all happened? Yes, and yes. Let's do it. All right, so we're going to go to the book of Jasher. Just in case you're new, the book of Jasher was mentioned in Scripture twice, Joshua 10:13 and 2 Samuel 1:18. We're going to look at Jasher 58. We're going to first read verses 1 through 20. And it came to pass in the 32nd year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, That is, in the 71st year of the life of Joseph, in that year died Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Magron, his son, reigned in his stead. And Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son Magron, and that Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. And all Egypt consented to this thing, that Joseph should be king over them, for all the Egyptians loved Joseph as heretofore. Only Magron, the son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became king in those days in his father's stead. Magron was 41 years old when he began to reign, and 40 years he reigned in Egypt. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do in Egypt to every king that reigned over them. We're actually going to read a quick little passage of how the name Pharaoh came to be and how that relates to, well, light and darkness. Okay, little teaser. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh reigned in his father's stead, he placed the laws of Egypt and all the affairs of government in the hand of Joseph, as his father had commanded him. And Joseph became king over Egypt, for he superintended over all Egypt. And all Egypt was under his care and under his counsel, for all Egypt inclined to Joseph after the death of Pharaoh, and they loved him exceedingly to reign over them. But, here's the root. Here's the root of what happened here. But there were some people amongst them who did not like him, saying, "No stranger shall reign over us." Still, the whole government of Egypt devolved in those days upon Joseph, after the death of Pharaoh, he being the regulator, doing as he liked throughout the land without anyone interfering. And all Egypt was under the care of Joseph, and Joseph made war with all his surrounding enemies, and he subdued them. Also, all the land and all the Philistines unto the borders of Canaan did Joseph subdue, and they were all under his power, and they gave a yearly tax unto Joseph. And Pharaoh king of Egypt sat upon his throne in his father's stead, but he was under the control and counsel of Joseph, as he was at first under the control of his father. Neither did he reign but in the land of Egypt only, under the counsel of Joseph. But Joseph reigned over the whole country at that time, from Egypt unto the great river Perath. And Joseph was successful in all his ways, and Yahweh was with him, and Yahweh gave Joseph additional wisdom, and honor, and glory, and love toward him in the hearts of the Egyptians and throughout the land. And Joseph reigned over the whole country 40 years. And all the countries of the Philistines, and Canaan, and Zidon, and on the other side of Jordan, brought presents unto Joseph all his days. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph, and they brought unto him a yearly tribute, as it was regulated, for Joseph had fought against all his surrounding enemies and subdued them. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph, and Joseph sat securely upon his throne in Egypt. And also all his brethren, the sons of Jacob, dwelt securely in the land all the days of Joseph, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly in the land. And they served Yahweh all their days, as their father Jacob had commanded them. And it came to pass at the end of many days and years, when the children of Esau were dwelling quietly in their land with Bela their king, that the children of Esau were fruitful and multiplied in the land. And they resolved to go and fight with the sons of Jacob and all Egypt, and to deliver their brother Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and his men, for they were yet in those days slaves to Joseph. And the children of Esau sent unto all the children of the east, and they made peace with them. And all the children of the east came unto them to go with the children of Esau to Egypt to battle. And there came also unto them the people of Angeas, king of Dinhaba. And they also sent unto the children of Ishmael, and they also came unto them. And all this people assembled and came unto Seir to assist the children of Esau in their battle. And this camp was very large and heavy with people, numerous as the sand of the sea, about 800,000 men, infantry, and cavalry. And all these troops went down to Egypt to fight with the sons of Jacob, and they encamped by Ramesses. And Joseph went forth with his brethren, with the mighty men of Egypt, about 600 men, and they fought with them in the land of Ramesses. And the sons of Jacob at that time again fought with the children of Esau, in the 50th year of the sons of Jacob going down into Egypt. That is the 30th year of the reign of Bela over the children of Esau in Seir. And Yahweh gave all the mighty men of Esau and the children of the east into the hand of Joseph and his brethren. And the people of the children of Esau and the children of the east were smitten before Joseph. And of the people of Esau and the children of the east that were slain, there fell before the sons of Jacob about 200,000 men. And their king Bela the son of Beor fell with them in battle. And when the children of Esau saw that their king had fallen in battle and was dead, their hands became weak in combat. We're going to skip down to verse 28, but it says, But from that day forward, the children of Esau hated the sons of Jacob, and the hatred and enmity were very strong between them all the days unto this day. So that's an important point, because we're going to find out that this is what Pharaoh and Egypt use against the children of Israel as kind of leverage to get them to start into slavery. And we'll see how that evolves here in a bit. We're going to go to chapter 59. We're going to skip verses 1 through 27, because this basically recaps Genesis 50 and Exodus 1 that we just read. So we're going to go to verse 28, which I think is the last verse, yeah. And it came to pass, after the death of Joseph, all the Egyptians began in those days to rule over the children of Israel, and Pharaoh king of Egypt, who reigned in his father's stead, took all the laws of Egypt and conducted the whole government of Egypt under his counsel, and he reigned securely over his people. So the death of Joseph, of course, as we all would imagine, is the beginning of how everything went down. We're going to skip chapter 60. This is the history of Zepho. This is one of the sons of Eliphaz, and also the history of Angeas, king of Africa. Very interesting passage if you want to read it, but we're going to kind of try to stay completely on topic here, because there's a lot to read. If I read everything I wanted to read, this would be a 4-hour tour portion, which we're not going to do that. Book of Jasher, chapter 61. Check this out. We're going to read verses 1 through 15. And it came to pass at that time, Pharaoh king of Egypt commanded all his people to make for him a strong palace in Egypt. And he also commanded the sons of Jacob to assist the Egyptians in the building. And the Egyptians made a beautiful and elegant palace for a royal habitation. And he dwelt therein, and he renewed his government, and he reigned securely. And Zebulun the son of Jacob died in that year. That is the 72nd year of the going down of the Israelites to Egypt. And Zebulun died 114 years old, and was put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in the 75th year died his brother Shimon. He was 120 years old at his death, and he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And Zepho the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, captain to the host of Angeas, king of Dinhaba, it's Africa, was still daily enticing Angeas to prepare for battle to fight with the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas was unwilling to do this thing, for his servants had related to him all the might of the sons of Jacob, what they had done unto them in their battle with the children of Esau. And Zepho was in those days daily enticing Angeas to fight with the sons of Jacob in those days. And after some time Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho, and consented to him to fight with the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order, a people numerous as the sand which is upon the seashore, and he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth 15 years old, Balaam, the son of Beor. This is the same Balaam we read about in Numbers with the donkey. Balaam, the son of Beor, was his name, and the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. And Angeas said unto Balaam, Conjure for us, I pray you, with the witchcraft, that we may know who will prevail in this battle to which we are now proceeding. And Balaam ordered that they should bring him wax, and he made thereof the likeness of chariots and horsemen, representing the army of Angeas and the army of Egypt. And he put them in the cunningly prepared waters they had for that purpose. And he took in his hand the boughs of myrtle trees, and he exercised his cunning. And he joined them over the water, and there appeared unto him in the water the resembling images of the host of Angeas, falling before the resembling images of the Egyptians and the sons of Jacob. And Balaam told this thing to Angeas, and Angeas despaired, and did not arm himself to go down to Egypt to battle, and he remained in his city. And when Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, saw that Angeas despaired of going forth to battle with the Egyptians, Zepho fled from Angeas from Africa, and he went and came unto Chittim. And all the people of Chittim received him with great honor, and they hired him to fight their battles all the days. And Zepho became exceedingly rich in those days, and the troops of the kings of Africa still spread themselves in those days. And the children of Chittim assembled and went to Mount Kuptizia, on account of the troops of Angeas, king of Africa, who were advancing upon them. And it was one day that Zepho lost a young heifer, and he went to seek it, and he heard it lowing around about the mountain. And Zepho went and saw, and behold, there was a large cave at the bottom of the mountain, and there was a great stone there at the entrance of the cave. And Zepho split the stone, and he came into the cave, and he looked, and behold, a large animal was devouring the ox. From the middle upward it resembled a man, and from the middle downward it resembled an animal. And Zepho rose up against the animal and slew it with his sword. So something that we saw a couple Torah portions ago with the lineage of Esau with, who was it? Anna, who saw the mules or the Yamim in the wilderness, and so you have these kind of chimera type creatures, and so we know that there was mixing of DNA in the time of Noah, even of course at the time of Babel and the dispersion, and also we know happening in the last days as well. So little interesting part there. But here's just more of the backstory of, you just have these constant wars with Egypt, and everybody wants to take Egypt down. They want to take down the sons of Jacob, especially the sons of Esau, that have this hatred, this burning hatred. You have this nation versus nation going on. And so you have these sons of Esau that are going around to different countries and wanting to stir up war. So let's go to chapter 62. We're going to read verses 1 through 5. In that year, being the 79th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, died Reuben, the son of Jacob, in the land of Egypt. Reuben was 125 years old when he died, and they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And in the 80th year died his brother Dan. He was 120 years at his death, and he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in that year died Cusham, king of Edom, and after him reigned Hadad, the son of Bedad, for 35 years. And in the 81st year died Issachar, the son of Jacob, in Egypt. And Issachar was 122 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 82nd year died Asher, his brother. He was 123 years old at his death, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 83rd year died Gad, and he was 125 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. So obviously we're seeing the death of the sons of Jacob, and as they're dying off, it's like they're going to be getting into slavery here, and we'll see this progression. And again, there's some things here that I think we can really glean from. Let's go down to verse 23, and here. And it came to pass at that time that Judah the son of Jacob died in Egypt, in the 86th year of Jacob's going down to Egypt. And Judah was 129 years old at his death. And they embalmed him and put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. In the 89th year died Naphtali. He was 132 years old, and he was put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. We're going to skip the rest of this chapter. It's just Moab versus Midian wars. 63, we're going to verses 1 through 9. And in the 93rd year died Levi, the son of Jacob, in Egypt. And Levi was 137 years old when he died, and they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And it came to pass, after the death of Levi, when all Egypt saw that the sons of Jacob, the brethren of Joseph, were dead, all the Egyptians began to afflict the children of Jacob, and to embitter their lives from that day unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. And they took from their hands all the vineyards and fields which Joseph had given unto them, and all the elegant houses in which the people of Israel lived, and all the fat of Egypt. The Egyptians took all from the sons of Jacob in those days. By the way, and you start to think, you'd be like, well, if they start to see all this kind of oppression, why didn't they just leave and be like, let's just go somewhere else? Remember the prophecy given to Abraham. They were supposed to be in that place to a certain time. It was also given through Jacob, or through Joseph. He's like, surely Elohim will come and visit you. And they were promised to be taken into the promised land by Yah himself. So they knew by prophecy they had to remain there. Even though things were getting rough, they had to remain there. And the hand of all Egypt became more grievous in those days against the children of Israel. So now all the patriarchs were dead. And the Egyptians injured the Israelites until the children of Israel were wearied of their lives on account of the Egyptians. And it came to pass in those days, in the 102nd year of Israel's going down into Egypt, that Pharaoh king of Egypt died, and Melol his son reigned in his stead. And all the mighty men of Egypt and all that generation which knew Joseph and his brethren died in those days. So now, right here, and another generation rose up in their stead. It only takes one generation to change everything. We've learned that in the scriptures. You had Hezekiah, who restored righteousness to Israel. And he taught his son. He did. He was a righteous man. He followed the Torah. And the Torah says to diligently teach our children. That very next generation with Manasseh, he became the worst king ever. Now, praise Yah, he repented at the end of his years. However, you just see there, it just takes one generation. And then you had apostasy until Josiah. And Josiah was like, hey, we found Shaphan was like, hey, we found this Torah kind of here in the treasury, and they read it before him. And Josiah was like, he rent his clothes, and then he restored righteousness. So it only takes one generation, good or bad. So and another generation rose up in their stead, which had not known the sons of Jacob, and all the good which they had done to them, and all their might in Egypt. So therefore all Egypt began from that day forth to embitter the lives of the sons of Jacob, and to afflict them with all manner of hard labor, because they had not known their ancestors who had delivered them in the days of the famine. And this was also from Yahweh. Think about this for a second. They're starting to put them into slavery, into bondage, and this was also from Yahweh for the children of Israel, to benefit them in their latter days, in order that all the children of Israel might know Yahweh their Elohim. And that is something that we've been talking about in the Testament of the Patriarchs, the last couple Torah portions, and upcoming the Book of Natsarim study that we're going to do. Is so many times we learn, the lesson we learn is that the struggle of life is good for us. It teaches us lessons. It refines us. It refines the bad out of us. It's like the gardener pruning the dead branches off of the rose bush so that more will bloom and blossom, and that's what he does. In John 15, he says, I am the vine and my Father is the husbandman, or the gardener. And he talks about those who produce fruit. He prunes that they bring forth more fruit. We also learn through, we'll read it here, that the affliction is good for us. David cried out and he said in Psalm 119:71, it is good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes. And that's exactly what it's saying here. And this was also from Yahweh for the children of Israel, to benefit them in their latter days, in order that all the children of Israel might know Yahweh their Elohim. I've shared this, my brief version of my testimony many times. I did not live a good life. I knew, or at least I thought I knew Yah at the beginning of my years. And then later on, when I got into the military, and then afterwards into the business world, I lived a terrible life of just terrible. And I can attest that it wasn't until I faced real adversity and hardships that I actually wanted to seek him out. So I can honestly say it is good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes. Otherwise, had he not afflicted me, who knows? Maybe I would have never come around. Hebrews 12, so I'm thankful for it. So Hebrews 12:5-8. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of Yahweh, nor be weary when reproved by him. For Yahweh disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. So instead of like, why me? Or, oh, poor me, I don't deserve this, I deserve better. Thank you. In the midst of the trial, thank you. What lesson do I need to learn? How can I be refined in this test, Father? Instead of just like, save me, why me? It is for discipline that you have to endure. Elohim is treating you as sons, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which we all have participated, then you were illegitimate children and not sons, which nobody wants to be, of course. So let's get back to it. So this was from Yah. Just like we read about in Revelation 17:17, in the end times, the whole beast system, the order, the kings coming together, oppressing people, it's according to Yah's will. And we can either be obedient sons and be like, Father, we're willing to endure your chastening. It's good for us that we're chastened. It's good for us that we have hardships. It's good for us that we're tested. It's good for us that we're tested with health and financial and mental and all these different things. Thank you. Thank you for not leaving me be. Thank you. There's a couple quotes I want to read in the book of Natsarim, the study that we're getting ready to do. We're going to look at, let's see. Again, this is a book we're testing, and have found a lot of benefit to our walk here. Book of Natsarim 4:31 says, Yehusha said, fear not the hostility of men, nor the wiles of the world. Rise above your conditions. Be like the water lily, which rises out of the mud, up through the murky waters into the sunlight above. Strive always to rise above your circumstances, for in striving you gain strength. Anyone who's ever lifted weights, you know you don't get the gain unless you've got the pain. Well, how much more in the spiritual realm? It's the same thing. The man whose path through life has been easy is never as good as the one whose path has been difficult. Life has two purposes only, to test and teach, and for that earth is perfect. I agree with that statement. Let's go a little bit later into chapter 9. We're just a couple more verses, and we'll get back to where we were. 9:33, chapter 9, verse 33 says, I call you to serve no mean cause, no little cause, but to stand beside me and claim your inheritance. Those who dispute the claim are the ones I reject, and you must set your faces against them, even as I do. Come and inherit the incorruptible glory which is in heaven, even as flesh is on earth. The way is narrow and difficult, for no one who has not been tempted and tried can attain his reward. I've mentioned this before. Those of you that have planted plants, or anybody that has ever seen a plant, you know. So you have two plants, one plant that endured heavy winds and harder rain, and then you have another plant that there was never any wind on it, and it was always just a light drizzle. Which plant would be better suited to withstand the storm that's coming? Well, of course, plant A, that has had the winds of testing in the same way as our life. So instead of asking, why me, praise Yah. That's like a whole, it's easier said than done, and I'm nowhere perfect with that, because listen, we all get tried, and sometimes we're just like, could I just get a little break? But we got to have that patience like Job had. Hopefully none of us ever has to be tested at those great lengths. However, we can gain inspiration from that story. All right, last one from Nazarene, 9:55 through 57. Is there any man among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or a snake if he asks for a fish? If then you, with all your mortal faults and ignorance, know how to give the right things to your children, how much more able is Yahweh to give what is right for his? The things you surely do not need are comfort and content, while assurance and security open the gates to spiritual apathy. Totally agree with that. Enter by the narrow, unpretentious gate, for the road leading to the dark abyss has a wide road and attractive entrance, while the gate leading to immortality is austere, and the road is fraught with difficulties. Beware of false prophets and those who would mislead you, for many seeking to promote their own ends walk the ways of righteousness, clothed in sheepskins, but are hypocrites, being ravening wolves within. Those who indicate an easy path are false guides, and those who say another can absolve them from the effects of their misdeeds expound an error. So, it's good for us. The struggle is good for us. Let's continue. So again, they're starting to embitter their lives. This is admittedly from Yah to test them, to refine them. And in order to know the signs and mighty wonders which Yahweh would do in Egypt on account of his people Israel, in order that the children of Israel might fear Yahweh Elohim of their ancestors, and walk in all his ways, and their seed after them all the days. That's what it's for. That's what the testing for. Malol was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 94 years. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do to every king who reigned over them in Egypt. Again, we'll read the why shortly. Let's go to chapter 64, because the rest of this is Kittim versus Africa wars. We're going to go to chapter 64. We're going to read verse starting at 7. At that time, when Zepho had returned from the war, and when Zepho had seen how he prevailed over all the people of Africa, and had smitten them in battle at the edge of the sword, then Zepho advised with the children of Chittim to go to Egypt to fight with the sons of Jacob and with Pharaoh the king of Egypt. For Zepho had heard that the mighty men of Egypt were dead, and that Joseph and his brethren, the sons of Jacob, were dead, and that all their children, the children of Israel, remained in Egypt. And Zepho considered to go to fight against them, and all Egypt, to avenge the cause of his brethren, the children of Esau, whom Joseph with his brethren and all Egypt had smitten in the land of Canaan, when they went up to bury Jacob in Hebron. And Zepho sent messengers to Hadad, son of Bedad, king of Edom, and to all his brethren, the children of Esau, saying, Did you not say that you would not fight against the king of Africa? For he is a member of your covenant. Behold, I fought with him and smote him and all his people. Now therefore, I have resolved to fight against Egypt and the children of Jacob who are there, and I will be revenged of them for what Joseph, his brethren, and ancestors did to us in the land of Canaan when they went up to bury their father in Hebron. Now then, if you are willing to come to me to assist in fighting against them in Egypt, then shall we avenge the cause of our brethren. And the children of Esau hearkened to the words of Zepho, and the children of Esau gathered themselves together, a very great people, and they went to assist Zepho and the children of Chittim in battle. And Zepho sent to all the children of the east and to the children of Ishmael with words like unto these. And they gathered themselves and came to the assistance of Zepho and the children of Chittim in the war upon Egypt. And all these kings, the king of Edom and the children of the east and all the children of Ishmael, and Zepho the king of Chittim, went forth and arrayed all their hosts in Hebron. And the camp was very heavy, extending in length a distance of 3 days' journey, a people numerous as the sand upon the seashore, which cannot be counted. And all these kings and their hosts went down and came against all Egypt in battle, and encamped together in the valley of Pathros. And all Egypt heard their report, and they also gathered themselves together, and all the people of the land of Egypt, and of all the cities belonging to Egypt, about 300,000 men. And all the men of Egypt sent also the children of Israel who were in those days in the land of Goshen to come to them in order to go and fight with these kings. And the men of Israel assembled and were about 150 men, and they went into battle to assist the Egyptians. And the men of Israel and of Egypt went forth about 300,000 men and 150 men. And they went towards these kings to battle, and they placed themselves from without the land of Goshen opposite Pathros. And the Egyptians believed not in Israel to go with them in their camps together for battle, for all the Egyptians said, Perhaps the children of Israel will deliver us into the hand of the children of Esau and Ishmael, for they are their brethren, their relatives. And all the Egyptians said unto the children of Israel, Remain you here together in your stand, and we will go and fight against the children of Esau and Ishmael. And if these kings should prevail over us, then come you all together upon them and assist us. And the children of Israel did so. And Zepho the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, king of Chittim, and Hadad the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and all their camps, and all the children of the east, and children of Ishmael, a people numerous as the sand, encamped together in the valley of Pathros opposite Tahaphanes. And Balaam the son of Beor the Syrian was there in the camp of Zepho, for he came with the children of Chittim to the battle. And Balaam was a man highly honored in the eyes of Zepho and his men. And Zepho said unto Balaam, Try by divination for us, that we may know who will prevail in battle, we or the Egyptians. And Balaam rose up and tried the art of divination, and he was skillful in the knowledge of it, but he was confused, and the work was destroyed in his hands. And he tried it again, but it did not succeed. And Balaam despaired of it, and left it, and did not complete it. For this was from Yahweh, in order to cause Zepho and his people to fall into the hand of the children of Israel, who had trusted in Yahweh, the Elohim of their ancestors, in their war. And Zepho and Hadad put their forces in battle array, and all the Egyptians went alone against them, about 300,000 men, and not one man of Israel was with them. And all the Egyptians fought with these kings opposite Pathros and Tahaphanes, and the battle was severe against the Egyptians, and the kings were stronger than the Egyptians in the battle. And about 180 men of Egypt fell on that day, and about 30 men of the forces of the kings. And all the men of Egypt fled from before the kings. So the children of Esau and Ishmael pursued the Egyptians, continuing to smite them unto the place where was the camp of the children of Israel. And all the Egyptians cried unto the children of Israel, saying, Hasten to us, and assist us, and save us from the hand of Esau, Ishmael, and the children of Chittim. And the 150 men of the children of Israel ran from their station to the camps of these kings. And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh their Elohim to deliver them. And Yahweh hearkened to Israel. And Yahweh gave all the men of the kings into their hand. And the children of Israel fought against these kings. And the children of Israel smote about 4,000 of the king's men. And Yahweh threw a great consternation in the camp of the kings, so that the fear of the children of Israel fell upon them. And all the hosts of the kings fled from before the children of Israel, and the children of Israel pursued them, continuing to smite them unto the borders of the land of Cush. And the children of Israel slew of them in the road yet 2,000 men, and of the children of Israel not one fell. And when the Egyptians saw that the children of Israel had fought with such few men with the kings, and that the battle was so very severe against them, all the Egyptians were greatly afraid of their lives on account of the strong battle. And all Egypt fled, every man hiding himself from the arrayed forces, and they hid themselves on the road, and they left the Israelites to fight. And the children of Israel inflicted a very terrible blow upon the king's men, and they returned from them after they had driven them to the border of the land of Cush. And all Israel knew the thing which all the men of Egypt had done to them, and they had fled from them in battle, and had left them to fight alone. So the children of Israel also acted with cunning, and as the children of Israel returned from battle, they found some of the Egyptians in the road and smote them there. Deserters. Modern-day armies do the same thing. And whilst they slew them, they said unto them these words, Wherefore did you go from us and leave us? being a few people, to fight against these kings who had a great people to smite us, that you might thereby deliver your own souls? And some of which the Israelites met on the road, they, the children of Israel, spoke to each other, saying, Smite, smite, for he is an Ishmaelite, or an Edomite, or from the children of Chittim. And they stood over him and slew him, and they knew that he was an Egyptian. And the children of Israel did these things cunningly against the Egyptians, because they had deserted them in battle and had fled from them. And the children of Israel slew the men of Egypt in the road in this manner, about 200 men. And all the men of Egypt saw the evil which the children of Israel had done to them. So all Egypt feared greatly the children of Israel, for they had seen their great power, and that not one man of them had fallen. So all the children of Israel returned with joy on their road to Goshen, and the rest of Egypt returned, each man to his place. So here's the beginning. Here's more of the beginning of how things changed. Let's go to chapter 65. And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king and bowed down to the ground, and they sat before him. And the counselors and elders of Egypt spoke unto the king, saying, Behold, the people of the children of Israel is greater and mightier than we. And you know all the evil which they did to us in the road when we returned from battle. And you have also seen their strong power, for this power is unto them from their fathers. For but a few men stood up against a people numerous as the sand, and smote them at the edge of the sword. And of themselves not one has fallen, so that if they had been numerous, they would have utterly destroyed them. Now therefore, give us counsel what to do with them, until we gradually destroy them from amongst us, lest they become too numerous for us in the land. So this story, I believe, is true, and it makes total sense to me of how this escalated. Hopefully this is interesting to you as well. Again, I like to ask the questions why, or how did this happen, or why? And in this book, we get the why. And I find this as a treasure. For if the children of Israel should increase in the land, they will become an obstacle to us. And if any war should happen to take place, they with their great strength will join our enemy against us and fight against us to destroy us from the land and go away from it. So the king answered the elders of Egypt and said unto them, This is the plan advised against Israel, from which we will not depart. Behold, in the land are Pithom and Rameses, cities unfortified against battle. It behooves you and us to build them and to fortify them. Now therefore, go you also and act cunningly toward them, and proclaim a voice in Egypt and in Goshen at the command of the king, saying, All you men of Egypt, Goshen, Pathros, and all the inhabitants, the king has commanded us to build Pithom and Rameses, and to fortify them for battle. Who amongst you of all Egypt, of the children of Israel, and of all the inhabitants of the cities are willing to build with us? Shall each have his wages given to him daily at the king's order. So you go first and do cunningly, and gather yourselves and come to Pithom and Rameses to build. So this is how the slavery began. All these wars and their fear, and they're like, how do we do this? Well, let's get them by working hard, by pitching fear and money. And you say to yourself, what's going on today in today's world? What do they sell? Money and fear. Well, fake money and that wealth will make you happy, which is the biggest lie in the world. The Book of Proverbs will tell you that. But seriously, I mean, there's nothing new. Book of Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new in the sun. What has happened shall be again. Yahweh requires that which is past. Money and fear. It's how they got them entrapped. And how does the world entrap a lot of its people today? Money, well, debt, really, and fear. And whilst you are building, cause a proclamation of this kind to be made throughout Egypt every day at the command of the king. And when some of the children of Israel shall come to build with you, you shall give them their wages daily for a few days. And after they shall have built with you for their daily hire, drag yourselves away from them daily one by one in secret, and then you shall rise up and become their taskmasters and officers, and you shall leave them afterward to build without wages, and should they refuse, then force them with all your might to build. And if you do this, it will be well with us to strengthen our land against the children of Israel. For on account of the fatigue of the building and the work, the children of Israel will decrease, because you will deprive them from their wives day by day. So this was their plan. And all the elders of Egypt heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and in the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all Egypt, and they did according to the word of the king. And all the servants went away from the king, and they caused a proclamation to be made in all Egypt, in Tahaphanes, and in Goshen, and in all the cities which surrounded Egypt, saying, You have seen what the children of Esau and Ishmael did to us, who came to war against us and wished to destroy us. Now therefore, the king commanded us to fortify the land. So they're selling fear, right? You've seen what Esau has done. Now therefore, the king commanded us to fortify the land, to build the cities of Pithom and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle if they should again come against us. Whosoever of you from all Egypt and from the children of Israel will come to build with us, he shall have his daily wages given by the king as his command is unto us. So I think about this last, the thing happened from 2020 to the last couple of years where they stuck things in people's arms and made them wear masks and all that kind of stuff. Think about it. They were selling fear. And really, when it came to the jibby jab, I was seeing all the time. Like, they were having, like, lottery drawings. Like, if you get this, you'll be in a drawing for $1 million. And people's work, their wages were being, their jobs were in jeopardy over it. So money and fear, money and fear, money and fear to move forward an agenda. Man, there's nothing new. Egypt is still doing that today. And when Egypt and all the children of Israel heard all that the servants of Pharaoh had spoken, there came from the Egyptians and the children of Israel to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramesses, but none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. Ah, now we're getting wise. We'll learn more about this in a second. So all the Levites were like, yeah, we're not going. And all the servants of Pharaoh and his princes came at first with deceit to build with all Israel as daily hired laborers. And they gave to Israel their daily hire at the beginning. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Israel, and were employed in that work with Israel for a month. And at the end of the month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Israel daily. And Israel went on with the work at that time, but they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Egypt were yet carrying on the work with Israel at that time. Therefore the Egyptians gave Israel their hire in those days, in order that they, the Egyptians, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. And at the end of 1 year and 4 months, all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, so that the children of Israel were left alone engaged in the work. And after all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them. And some of them stood over the children of Israel as taskmasters, to receive from them all that they gave them for the pay of their labor. And the Egyptians did in this manner to the children of Israel day by day, in order to afflict them in their work. And all the children of Israel were alone engaged in the labor, and on the Egyptians refrained from giving any pay to the children of Israel from that time forward. And when some of the men of Israel refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows, and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Egyptians unto the children of Israel all the day. So they started subduing them, and the children of Israel bought into the fear. And because you think about it, if 150 men were able to kill hundreds of thousands, why didn't they were like, you're not going to do this to us. We're going to kill you. It's because they bought, I just an opinion here. I don't know. It doesn't give us the exact detail, but it seems as though they had bought into the fear, and maybe they were attracted by the wages. I don't know. And maybe through that, spiritually, they were able to be oppressed and then physically oppressed. Just some thoughts. And the reason I really like reading this, because for some of you and me, like, well, how is all this information going to help my walk? I think we're seeing some things here and some storylines that a lot of us are obviously know, but maybe in the future, maybe the schemes will get more deceitful, or maybe they'll get a little harder on you, on us in our financial positions, whatever. Who knows? And this is maybe one of those things where we'll have to separate ourselves, like the children of Levi, which we'll read more about, and to separate ourselves from them. And all the children of Israel were greatly afraid of the Egyptians in this matter, and all the children of Israel returned and worked alone without pay. So they were afraid. They bought into fear. And the children of Israel built Pithom and Ramesses, and all the children of Israel did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Israel built and fortified all the land of Egypt and its walls. And the children of Israel were engaged in work for many years, until the time came when Yahweh remembered them and brought them out of Egypt. But the children of Levi, listen. Here's something we learn. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Israel from the beginning unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. So now it starts to make sense. Well, actually, let me read a little more. For all the children of Levi knew that the Egyptians had spoken all these words with deceit to the Israelites. Therefore, the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren. Now, listen, I imagine that the Levites probably told them, like, hey, don't do this. And maybe the other children, the other tribes were like, no, we're good. We're just going to fortify the city, and they're going to pay us. Come on. What's wrong? The children of Levi were like, I don't think this seems right. We're not gonna do this. And the Egyptians did not direct their attention to make the children of Levi work afterward, since they had not been with their brethren at the beginning. Therefore, the Egyptians left them alone. So they didn't buy into the fear, and they didn't care for the money, and they withdrew, and they were left alone. Maybe something else that might manifest itself in the last days. I think a lot of us who saw the fear and these tactics with the jibby jab and other stuff and stayed away from it, I think we can stand back and be like, praise Yah, we stood our ground. Some of you that had to do it, well, I hope that I hope it's something that you can take to the Most High and repent of, because I'm not judging you, because I've done things I believe way worse than taking a vaccine under fear. But nevertheless, I do believe it's a harmful thing that they put into people's bodies, and we're starting to see some of the harmful effects of that. So this is not going to get into the V discussion. So I already said the word, so I'm sure it's already going to get flagged. But and the hands of the men of Egypt were directed with continued severity against the children of Israel in that work, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel work with rigor. And it also makes sense, by the way, that the children of Levi stayed away. How else were Moses and Aaron able to just kind of walk around and be like, hey, Pharaoh, we need to talk to you? They weren't like, slaves, get back to work. What are you doing? So just something to consider. And the Egyptians embittered the lives of the children of Israel with hard work in mortar and bricks, and also all manner of work in the field. And the children of Israel called Melol, the king of Egypt, Meror, king of Egypt, because in his days the Egyptians had embittered their lives with all manner of work. And all the work wherein the Egyptians made the children of Israel labor, they exacted with rigor in order to afflict the children of Israel. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and the Egyptians were grieved because of the children of Israel. Think about what I was talking about earlier with that rose bush. If we're supposed to be a plant, because again, Psalm 1 says that the person that dwells, that meditates on the Torah day and night, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth his fruit in his season, and his leaf shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. So if at the same time we're constantly watered and Yah's constantly trimming us, which that trimming could be hardships, because through those hardships we grow, and the bad goes and the good stays. We could be like that rose bush that as it's trimmed, it just blossoms full of roses. And if you don't know anything about gardening, or just look at just Google DuckDuckGo. No, that's not good. Search search gardening techniques, pruning, and or what are the benefits of pruning. Look it up and you'll see. And there's a parable in that, and that's for our lives, because we're supposed to be like a plant or a vine or a tree that brings forth fruit, so much like we see in nature that Yah has made for us. Chapter 66 of Jasher, more backstory. At that same time died Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and Samlah from Mesrekah, from the country of the children of the east, reigned in his place. In the 13th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which was the 125th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt, Samlah had reigned over Edom 18 years. And when he reigned, he drew forth his host to go and fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and the children of Chittim, because they had made war against Angeas, king of Africa, and they destroyed his whole army. But he did not engage with him, for the children of Esau prevented him, saying, he was their brother. So Samlah listened to the voice of the children of Esau, and turned back with all his forces to the land of Edom, and did not proceed to fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz. And Pharaoh king of Egypt heard this thing, saying, Samlah king of Edom has resolved to fight the children of Chittim, and afterward he will come to fight against Egypt. And when the Egyptians heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Israel. Like, so it's more fear, 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 fear. Read all about it. Lest the Israelites should do unto them as they did unto them in their war with the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. So the Egyptians said unto the children of Israel, Hasten, hurry up, and do your work, and finish your task, and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau, your brethren, should come to fight against us. For on your account they will come against us. So it's like fear, fear, fear. And so we learned what they were selling a couple years ago, or the last couple of years. And what's the big agenda now? Climate change. First it was climate. First it was global warming. Now it's climate change, because that didn't work out too well. But that's the big fear ticket they're selling now. So you may want to keep an eye on the agenda around that of how they're going to change society. And let's be like the Levites and be like, no, thank you. And the children of Israel did the work of the men of Egypt day by day, and the Egyptians afflicted the children of Israel in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Egyptians increased the labor upon the children of Israel, and so did the children of Israel increase and multiply. They're being fruitful. They're being pruned. And all Egypt was filled with the children of Israel. And in the 125th year of Israel's going down into Egypt, all the Egyptians saw that their counsel did not succeed against Israel, but that they increased and grew, and the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Israel. So all the elders of Egypt and its wise men came before the king and bowed down to him and sat before him. And all the elders of Egypt and the wise men thereof said unto the king, May the king live forever. You did counsel us at the council. You did counsel us the counsel against the children of Israel, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of labor, so do they increase and grow in the land. And behold, the whole country is filled with them. Now therefore, our master and king, the eyes of all Egypt are upon you, to give them advice with your wisdom, by which they may prevail over Israel to destroy them, or to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, Give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do unto them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Job, from Mesopotamia, in the land of Uz, yes, I do believe this is Job from the book, from the Bible, answered the king, saying, If it pleases the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, Speak. And Job spake before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Egypt, saying, Behold, the counsel of the king, which he advised formerly respecting the labor of the children of Israel, is very good, and you must not remove from them that labor forever. But this is the advice counseled by which you may lessen them, if it seems good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, When Israel becomes fruitful in the land, they will drive us from the land, if war should take place. If it please the king, let a royal decree go forth, and let it be written in the laws of Egypt, which shall not be revoked, that every male child born to the Israelites, his blood shall be spilled upon the ground. Now, some of you may be puzzled, because like the Bible says that Job was blameless in all his ways. So is it possible that Job didn't live previously a great life, and then you'll see that he was here in Egypt during all these things, and he repented? He repented and went to his land, and he became a good man. That's just how I understand it. And by your doing this, when all the male children of Israel shall have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so, and send for all the Hebrew midwives, and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Job. And the king sent for the Hebrew midwives to be called, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. So now we're going to learn a little bit more about these two midwives. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said unto them, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But if you will not do this thing, then I will burn you up and all your houses with fire. So the midwives had a choice, to either hearken to Pharaoh or hearken to, obviously, the Torah of the Most High. But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not hearken to the king of Egypt, nor to his words. And when the Hebrew women brought forth to the midwife son or daughter, then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child, and let it live. Thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told the king, and he sent and called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, Let not the king think that the Hebrew women are as the Egyptian women, for all the children of Israel are hale. This is healthy, lively. And before the midwife comes to them, they are delivered. And as for us, thy handmaids, for many days no Hebrew woman has brought forth upon us. For all the Hebrew women are their own midwives, because they are hale. And Pharaoh heard their words and believed them in this matter. And the midwives went away from the king, and Elohim dealt well with them, and the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly. So they feared Yah and not men, and they were rewarded. And the Targums, let's see, the Targums, again, is the Aramaic, says something really interesting. It says here, let's see, the midwives, they feared Yah. And for as much as the midwives feared before Yahweh, they obtained for themselves a good name unto the ages. And listen, and the word of Yahweh, Messiah, built up for them a royal house, even the house of the high priesthood, which we learn that Shiphrah and Puah are Jochebed and Miriam. So because of this, it's not like it's like they weren't homeless, and then Yah was like, here, I'm going to build you a house to live in. This is the house of the priesthood that he rewarded this household for, Jochebed and her daughter Miriam. So something interesting. Okay, so also something to consider too. Book of Sirach, in case you're new, Sirach is also known as Ecclesiasticus. Not Ecclesiastes, but Ecclesiasticus. This was included in the Apocrypha section of the 1611 King James Bible and many others. Chapter 2, verses 15 through 18 says, those who fear Yahweh will not disobey his words. So we're talking about the fear that Jochebed and Miriam had towards Yahweh versus what the world was threatening with, or the king. Those who fear Yahweh will not disobey his words, and those who love him will keep his ways. Those who fear Yahweh will seek his approval, not the approval of man. And those who love him will be filled with the law, the Torah. Those who fear Yahweh will prepare their hearts and will humble themselves before him. Let us fall into the hands of Yahweh, but not into the hands of men. For as his majesty is, so also is his mercy. So they trusted in putting their fear in Yahweh versus putting their fear in man. We'll see, there's another amazing book called Susanna. It's a one-chapter book. It's like 60 or 70 verses. But long story short, you had these two, takes place in Babylon, in dispersion. And Susanna was a very beautiful woman married to a very prominent man of Israel. And these two elders or judges of Israel were overcome by lust for her beauty. And they both found out together, and they're like, let's make her, do the thing with us. And so this is when they come upon Susanna, and this is what happens. Look, the garden doors are shut. No one sees us, and we are in love with you. So give your consent and lie with us. If you refuse, we will testify against you that a young man was with you, and this was why you sent your maids away. Susanna sighed deeply and said, I am hemmed in on every side. For if I do this thing, it is death for me. And if I do not, I shall not escape your hands. I choose not to do it. Fall into your hands, rather than to sin in the sight of Yahweh. Just a good book. If you want a good, quick little 7-10 minute read and just have an encouraging story right here, and it gets better because we see young Daniel in this becoming like a detective, like Columbo. Just one more thing. Let me ask you another question. Anyways, and he ends up, I don't want to ruin the story. If you haven't read it, it's just a great read. Look it up. It's the book of Susanna. This was also included in the Apocrypha of the 1611 KJV and many others. So let us fall into the hands of Yahweh, and let him be our fear. Let him be our dread, is what Isaiah 8 says. All right. So we finished chapter 1, and only took a little about an hour, but praise Yah. The rest of the chapters will go a little bit quicker. Not that this is a race, but I also know that a 3 or 4 hour Torah portion is not very realistic. So, but at the same time, these are here to be in depth for those that want to learn more, and let's learn together. So no more chit chat. Let's go to Exodus chapter 2. We're going to read verses 1 through 10 and then talk about it. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to be his woman a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Remember that. We're going to talk about that in a second. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the reeds by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Ephraim, this is one of the Hebrew children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to you a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, or Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. The water. All right, so let's go back to Exodus 2:2. It says here, And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. The reason I bring this up is because, I don't like to really get into calendar debates and that kind of stuff, but people continuously ask me, why do you do this calendar the way you do it, and why don't you do this calendar? This is something that I want to bring up is just some interesting evidence here. It says here, let's read it. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that it was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Let's look at this word months, because this is not your typical word for months. The word month was used hundreds of times. This is a different word. This is the word yerach. Yerach. And it literally means the moon. So she hid him 3 moons. This is one of the multiple pieces of evidence as to why I do believe that the moon is used for the months, which, there are some other very popular calendars out there that I constantly get emails and messages like, why aren't you on board with this? This makes total sense. Well, it's because I do, whether the calendar that I follow is exactly correct, I don't know. I can't say that. And I wouldn't be so proud and boastful to say that. But one thing I do feel 100% convicted and convinced of is that the moon is for the months. And a lot of these popular calendars out there don't do that. And so that was one of the pieces of evidence from the Torah that I wanted to share, that it said she hid him 3 moons. And that was a calculation of counting. And so I believe that's also why it was translated as months, is because I believe that the moon, so she hid him 3 moons, she hid him 3 months. Also here in Sirach, which we talked about earlier as part of the Apocrypha, chapter 43, verses 6-8 says, He made the moon also to serve in its season, to mark the times and to be an everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign for the feast days, a light that wanes when it has reached the full. The month is named for the moon, increasing marvelously in its phases, an instrument of the hosts on high, shining forth in the firmament of heaven. So just another piece of evidence I just want to share. So I don't want to sit here and talk about the calendar. That's not really my focus. I know the calendar can become a very consuming and just entire focus of people's walk, and that's not for me. It is something that I have researched and continue to do research on, but I really think that people that just dote on the calendar and that's all they talk about, I would caution you, and if some of you or listeners here do that, I would caution you, because I don't believe Messiah is going to be like, well done, faithful servant, come into the joy of your master, you found the right calendar, and focus on that only. Or in a lot of cases, and I can't say this for everyone, in a lot of cases that I've seen, just people interacting with me, when people make the calendar like their number one issue, more so than the gospel of salvation, sharing the good news, sharing truth, that kind of get a little snippy, So just something to be aware of and be careful of. And I'm not condemning anyone, because I'm just a brother, just sharing what's on my heart and sharing what I've seen out there. But so with all that being said, I did want to at least share a few nuggets of why I don't go along with a calendar that doesn't use the moon for the months, period. So enough of that, enough calendar stuff. So we read Exodus 2:1-10. So we see Moses being put in an ark, a bulrushes, and the daughter of Pharaoh gets him and names him Moses. So now let's look at Jasher 67, and we're going to read that. It says, there was a man in the land of Egypt of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, the son of Israel. And so you'll see here that there's really only 3 generations. So Levi went into Egypt with Jacob, his father. And then you have his son Kohath. And then you have his son Amram. And then you have Moses. Moses is Amram's son. So this is how many? This is 3 more generations after Levi. So 1, 2, and then Moses is 3. So they weren't in Egypt for like 400 years. And this man, so Amram, took a wife, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister, and she was 126 years old, and he came unto her. And the woman conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Egyptians have embittered the lives of the children of Israel. Meror is bitterness, and Merari, which is one of the other sons of Levi, is my bitterness. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Aharon. For in the days of her conception, Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children in Israel. In those days died Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, son of Esau, king of Chittim, and Janaeus reigned in his stead. And the time that Zepho reigned over the children of Chittim was 50 years, and he died and was buried in the city of Nabna in the land of Chittim. And Janaeus, one of the mighty men of the children of Chittim, reigned after him, and he reigned 50 years. And it was after the death of the king of Chittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim, and he went and came to Egypt to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents and made him for a counselor, and aggrandized him, made him bigger, magnified him, made him great. And Balaam dwelt in Egypt in honor with all the nobles of the king, and the nobles exalted him because they all coveted to learn his wisdom. And in the 130th year of Israel's going down to Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hands of the old man, such scales as are used by merchants. And the old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them on one scale. And he took a milk kid and put it into the other scale, and the kid preponderated or was greater over all. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning, and called all his servants, and related to them the dream, and the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, Interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king, and said unto him, This means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Israel, who will destroy all Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. Obviously, this is talking about the birth of Moses. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel, and their expectation, before this evil arise against Egypt. So we saw this with Abraham, in the birth, when it was signified in the stars, and they tried to kill him, because Nimrod had that dream. Moses, same thing. Of course, Messiah, same thing. And the king said unto Balaam, And what shall we do unto Israel? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over them. Now therefore, give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them. And Balaam answered the king, saying, Send now and call your 2 counselors, and we may see what their advice is upon this matter, and afterward your servant will speak. And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Reuel the Midianite, yes, Moses' eventual father-in-law, father of Zipporah, and Job the Uzite, and they came and sat before the king. This is the king's 2 main counselors. And the king said to them, Behold, you have both heard the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now therefore, give counsel, and know and see what is to be done to the children of Israel, whereby we may prevail over them, before their evil shall spring up against us. And Reuel the Midianite answered the king and said, May the king live, may the king live forever. If it seem good to the king, let him desist from the Hebrews, and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom Yahweh chose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, and the kings of the earth. And who is there that stretched his hand against them with impunity, of whom their Elohim was not avenged? Surely you know when Abraham went down to Egypt, Pharaoh, the former king of Egypt, saw Sarah his wife, and took her for a wife, because Abraham said, She is my sister. For he was afraid, lest the men of Egypt should slay him on account of his wife. And when the king of Egypt had taken Sarah, then Elohim smote him and his household with heavy plagues, until he restored unto Abraham Sarah his wife. Then he was healed. So that we know all these stories, and so he's relating all the amazing stories that were passed down, and the fame of them are still around. It goes all even down to Jacob. Jacob, also the plain man, was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the hand of Laban the Syrian, his mother's brother, who had sought his life, likewise from the hand of all the kings of Canaan, who had come together against him and his children to destroy them. And Yahweh delivered them out of their hands, that they turned upon them and smote them. For who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity? Surely Pharaoh, the former, your father's father, raised Joseph the son of Jacob above all the princes of the land of Egypt, when he saw his wisdom. For through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from the famine. After which he ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt, in order that through their virtue the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now therefore, if it seem good in your eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. This is again Reuel or Jethro. But if it be not your will that they shall dwell in Egypt, send them forth from here, that they may go in the land of Canaan, the land where their ancestors sojourned. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, he was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence, and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him, or staff. And the king said to Job the Uzite, What do you say, Job? And what is your advice respecting the Hebrews? So Job said to the king, Behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in your power. Let the king do as it seems good in his eyes. And the king said unto Balaam, What do you say, Balaam? Speak your word, that we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, Of all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, will they be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if you think to lessen them by the flaming fire, you cannot prevail over them, for surely their Elohim delivered Abraham their father from Ur of the Chaldeans. And if you think to destroy them with a sword, surely Isaac their father was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. And if with hard and rigorous labor you think to lessen them, you will not prevail even in this, for their father Jacob served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which you will prevail over them, and from which you should not depart. If it please the king, let him order all the children which shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water, for by this can you wipe away their name, for none of them, nor their fathers, were tried in this manner. And it's interesting. He said they weren't tried by water, but part of the Exodus, of course, as we know, that they were proved by water. And Peter later says it, I think Paul says that they were all baptized under Moshe in the cloud, and Peter says that it's very interesting that Balaam said they have not been tried by water, but then, of course, they prevail through water, so it's pretty cool. Same thing with Noah and the ark, prevailed through water. And the king heard the words of Balaam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, Every male child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called unto all his servants, saying, Go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing which Pharaoh had commanded, to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands, they went to the... Now, this may seem really wonky, but check this out. There's multiple witnesses. This is a true story. So when these women went to deliver, they went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field and left their children upon the field and returned home. So they literally just went out to the field, gave birth, and and went back. And Yahweh, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels which are in heaven to wash each child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and to put into its hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey. Some of you that know Deuteronomy and the other song of Moshe, Deuteronomy 32, you know where this comes from. And he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it and to cleave it, through his compassion for it. And when Elohim had compassion over them, and had desired to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein until the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herb of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with him there. And the babes of the children of Israel were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Elohim's grace to them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth, each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one of the plows of the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel. So the people increased and waxed exceedingly. So some of you are like, yeah, right, that sounds really weird and whatever. There's actually multiple witnesses to this being true. Let's take a look at the Targums. We're going to look at Targums 115. Let's see. Oh, well, let's see. And Pharaoh, let's zoom in a little bit for y'all. And Pharaoh told that he, being asleep, had seen in his dream, and behold, all the land of Mitzrayim was placed in one scale of a balance, and a lamb, the young of a sheep, was in the other scale, and the scale with the lamb in it overweighed. Forthwith he sent and called all the magicians of Mitzrayim, and imparted to them his dream. Immediately Jannes and Jambres, the chief of the magicians, opened their mouth and answered Pharaoh, "A certain child is about to be born in the congregation of Israel, by whose hand will be the destruction to all the land of Mitzrayim." Therefore did Pharaoh, the king of Mitzrayim, give counsel to the Hebrew midwives. Listen, the name of the one whom was Shiphrah, who is Jochebed, and the name of the other is Puah, who is Miriam the daughter. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32. So remember, in this kind of weird passage here, these children, they sucked milk and honey out of a rock or a stone. Deuteronomy 32:13, he made them ride on the high places of the land, and they ate the produce of the field. He suckled them, like a baby, right, with honey out of the rock and with oil out of the flinty rock. Check out the Targums, the Aramaic, of Exodus 15, verse 2. And it says here, Yahweh, let's see, maybe we'll just read this one. Yeah. Yahweh is mighty and greatly to be praised and feared over all the world. He spake in his word, Messiah, of course, and for us became salvation, Messiah. From their mother's breasts have even the children given signs with their fingers unto their fathers, and have said unto them, This is our father, who nourished us with honey from the rock, and gave us oil from the stone and clay. Actually, here, let me read this version right here. Honey from the rock, and with oil from the stone of clay, at the time when our mothers went forth upon the face of the field to give birth, and leave us there. And he sent a messenger who washed us and enwrapped us, and now we will praise him. He is the Elohim of our fathers, and we will exalt him. So, another witness of that pretty wild story. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty wild, but there's multiple witnesses in the Torah and other places. So, anyways, let's finish up with 67 and of Jasher, and we'll go back to Exodus. Where are we? And Pharaoh and his officers daily went to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Israel. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with its mother. Thus did the Egyptians do to the Israelites all their days. We're going to read actually a little bit of Jasher 68. I think this is pretty short. But first, before we read that, I want to remind you of this. Exodus 15:20 says, And Miriam the prophetess, took the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand. Anyway, so yada yada. But the important thing is here, it says that in the Torah that Miriam is a prophetess. But nowhere in the Torah does it show that she prophesied anything. There's only one place I know of where she prophesies, and that's right here. And it was at the Jasher 68. And it was at that time that the spirit of Elohim was upon Miriam, the daughter of Amram, the sister of Aharon, and she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, remember, they were given a house by Yahweh. Behold, a son will be born unto us from my father and my mother this time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. And when Amram heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house, after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Jacob to be thrown into the water. So Amram took Jochebed his wife 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. And at the end of 7 months from her conception she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great light, as of the light of the sun and the moon at the time of their shining. See Enoch 106, and the birth of Noah, same thing. And when the woman saw the child, that it was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 months in an inner room. In those days the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews there. And the Egyptian women went to Goshen, where the children of Israel were. And they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, their babes who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Israel brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders. And when an Egyptian woman came into the house of a Hebrew woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Egyptian woman went and told it at the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. And it was at that time, about 3 months from Jochebed's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son before the officers came, and she took him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister Miriam stood afar off to know what would be done to him, and what would become of her words. And Elohim sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Egypt, which burned up the flesh of man like the sun in his circuit. And it greatly oppressed the Egyptians. And all the Egyptians went down to bathe in the river, on account of the consuming heat, which burned up their flesh. And Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, went also to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat, and her maidens walked at that river side, and all the women of Egypt as well. And Bathia lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it, and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him. And she said, This is one of the Hebrew children. And all the women of Egypt walking on the riverside desired to give him suck, but he would not suck, for this thing was from Yahweh, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. And Miriam his sister was at that time amongst the Egyptian women at the riverside, and she saw this thing, and she said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and fetch a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, Take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay you your wages, 2 bits of silver daily. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was under her as a son. And she called his name Moshe, for she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And this is interesting because we always know Moses' name given by the Egyptians, but what was his Hebrew name? Joshua gives it to us. And Amram, his father, called his name Chabar, for he said, It was for him that he associated with his wife, whom he had turned away. And Jochebed, his mother, called his name Jechthuel, because she said, I have hoped for him to the Almighty Elohim, and restored him unto me. And Miriam his sister called him Yared, for she descended after him to the river to know what his end would be. And Aharon his brother called his name Abizanuch, saying, My father left my mother, and returned to her on his account. And Kohath, the father of Amram, called his name Abigdor, because on his account did Elohim repair the breach of the house of Jacob, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurse called him Abisocho, saying, In his tabernacle was he hidden for 3 months on account of the children of Ham. And all the children called his name Shemaiah, son of Nathaniel, for they said, In his days Elohim heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors. So this is what all Israel called him, Shemaiah. And Moses was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son, and Moses grew up amongst the king's children. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, we're still going. Jasher, this is just a couple of verses. And the king of Edom died in those days, in the 18th year of his reign, and was buried in his temple, which he had built for himself as his royal residence in the land of Edom. And the children of Esau sent to Pethor, which is upon the river, and they fetched from there a young man of beautiful eyes and comely aspect, whose name was Saul. And they made him king over them in the place of Samlah. And Saul reigned over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom for 40 years, kind of like foreshadow of Saul to come out of Benjamin, who was tall and handsome, and reigned 40 years. And when Pharaoh, king of Egypt, saw that the counsel which Balaam had advised respecting the children of Israel did not succeed, but that still they were fruitful and multiplied and increased throughout the land of Egypt, then Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Egypt to the children of Israel, saying, No man shall diminish anything of his daily labor. And the man who shall be found deficient in his labor which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in bricks, Then his youngest son shall be put in their place. And the labor of Egypt strengthened upon the children of Israel in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptians took his youngest boy by force from his mother, and put him into the building in the place of the brick which his father had left wanting. And the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel day by day, all the days for a long period. But the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites, their brethren, from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first towards the Israelites. An amazing truth that we need to learn here. Okay. Hang on one second. Okay. Jasher chapter 70. And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moses, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet, when Al-Paraneth the queen was sitting at his right hand, and Bathia at his left. And the lad Moses was lying upon her bosom, and Balaam the son of Beor with his 2 sons, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at the table in the king's presence. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took the crown from the king's head, and placed it on his own head. And when the king and princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king and the princes were terrified, and one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment. And the king said to the princes who were before him at the table, What speak you, and what say you, O you princes, in this matter? And what is to be the judgment against the boy on account of this act? And Balaam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered before the king and princes, and he said, Remember now, O my master and king, the dream which you did dream many days since, and that which your servant interpreted unto you. Now therefore this child is from the Hebrew children, in whom is the spirit of Elohim, and let not my master the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without any knowledge. For he is a Hebrew boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him, although he is yet a child, and with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Egypt. Anyways, this is a longer chapter, but it's a really cool passage. Long story short, Balaam's like, this is the one you need to kill. And so what happened is, they gathered all the wise men of Egypt and wanted to share this story. And Yahweh sent an angel of Yahweh to be there. And the angel of Yahweh spoke up and said, hey, let's test the boy. Let's see if he really did this with wisdom or if he just did it on accident. Set before him a burning hot coal and an onyx stone. And if he reaches for the onyx stone, then we know that with wisdom he did this. If he grabs the onyx, if he grabs the burning coal, then we know that he's just a child and did it by accident. Long story short, Moses was going for the onyx stone, but it says the angel of Yahweh guided his hand to the onyx stone, or to the burning coal, and put it in his mouth, and it like messed up his mouth. And I do believe this is why he had, later on we'll read, why he had a stammering lip, and why he was slow to speak. So something just interesting I just wanted to share with you right there. So let's go to, let's see here, hang on. Let's go to Targums 2:1. It says, And Amram, a man of the tribe of Levi, went and returned to live in marriage with Jochebed his wife, whom he had put away on account of the decree of Pharaoh. And she was the daughter of 130 years when he returned to her. But a miracle was wrought for her, and she returned unto youth as she was, when in her minority she was called the daughter of Levi. Just something kind of interesting I just wanted to share. But let's get back to Exodus chapter 2, and let's finish up chapter 2. And it came to pass in those days, when Moshe was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied a Mitzri smiting an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore do you smite your fellow? And he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Intend you to kill me as you killed the Egyptian, the Mitzrite? And Moshe feared and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moshe. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Let's pause there real quickly. I want to read, let's see, I want to read Jasher 71. It says, When Moses was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and he went to them to Goshen. And when Moses had come near Goshen, he came to the place where the children of Israel were engaged in work. And he observed their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting one of the Hebrew, his brethren. And when the man who was beasts and saw Moses, he ran to him for help. For the man Moses was greatly respected in the house of Pharaoh. And he said to him, My master, attend to me. This Egyptian came to my house in the night, bound me, and came to my wife in my presence, and now he seeks to take my life away. And when Moses heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled against the Egyptian, and he turned this way and the other, and when he saw that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand, and delivered the Hebrew from the hand of him that smote him. So for years, people are just calling Moses a murderer. I think this story really just sheds greater light on why Moshe felt he had the right to do that. It wasn't just merely beating the servant. He literally went and committed adultery with his wife in front of him. I'm talking about some severe wickedness, and then sought to kill his life, sought to kill him. So I think Moses was justified in that, because in the Torah, if someone rapes, their judgment is death. The Hebrew went to his house, and Moses returned to his home, and went forth and came back to the king's house. And when the man had returned home, he thought of repudiating his wife, for it was not right in the house of Jacob for any man to come to his wife after she had been defiled. And the woman went and told her brothers, and the woman's brothers sought to slay him, and he fled to his house and escaped. And on the second day Moses went forth to his brethren, and saw, and behold, two men were quarreling. This is Dathan, they're revealed as Dathan and Abiram in the Targums. And he said to the wicked one, Why do you smite your neighbor? And he answered him and said, Who has set you for a prince and a judge over us? Do you think to slay me as you did slay the Egyptian? And Moses was afraid, and he said, Surely the thing is known. And Pharaoh heard of this affair, and he ordered Moses to be slain. So Elohim sent his angel, and he appeared unto Pharaoh in the likeness of a captain of the guard. And the angel of Yahweh took the sword from the hand of the captain of the guard, and took his head off with it, for the likeness of the captain of the guard was turned into the likeness of Moses. And the angel of Yahweh took hold of the right hand of Moses, and brought him forth from Egypt, and placed him from without the borders of Egypt, a distance of 40 days. And Aaron his brother alone remained in the land of Egypt, and he prophesied to the children of Israel, saying, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors, Throw away each man the abominations of his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. And the children of Israel rebelled, and would not hearken to Aaron at that time. And Yahweh thought to destroy them, were it not that Yahweh remembered the covenant which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob. In those days the hand of Pharaoh continued to be severe against the children of Israel, and he crushed and oppressed them until the time when Elohim sent forth his word, Messiah, and took notice of them. So let's go to 72. We're going to skip. This talks about, in the book of Jasher, lets us know that there was time in between Egypt and Midian that he was in Cush, or Ethiopia, for a while. We're going to look at 73. Verses 28 through 34, and we'll see that Moses ends up becoming the king of Cush. And it says this, 28 through 34. And Balaam the magician, when he saw that the city was taken, he opened the gate, and he saw his 2 sons, and 8 brothers fled and returned to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They are the sorcerers and magicians who are mentioned in the book of the Torah, standing against Moses when Yahweh brought the plagues upon Egypt. So Moses took the city by his wisdom, and the children of Cush placed him on the throne instead of Kikianus, king of Cush. And they placed the royal crown upon his head, and they gave him for a wife Adoniah, the Cushite queen, wife of Kikianus. This is the Cushite queen, or wife, that is mentioned in the book of Numbers. It says, Numbers 12, 1 through 2, and Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman, and we don't learn about that anywhere. And so this is where we learn about that. And Moses feared Yahweh his fathers, so that he came not to her, nor did he turn his eyes to her. For Moses remembered how Abraham had made his servant Eliezer swear, saying unto him, You shall not take a woman from the daughters of Canaan for my son Isaac. And also what Isaac did to Jacob when he had fled from his brother, when he commanded him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, nor make an alliance with any of the children of Ham. And so we'll continue on there. We're going to skip 74 of Jasher. This is the reign of different kings. And here in 75, this is something I really want to talk about very quickly. I think it's incredibly important. We're talking about things for our time right now. Some of these stories of old that really give us insight. Let's read it. Jasher 75. At that time, in the 180th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt, there went forth from Egypt valiant men, 30,000 on foot from the children of Israel, who were all of the tribe of Joseph, of the children of Ephraim, the son of Joseph. For they said the period was completed, with which Yahweh had appointed the children of Israel in the times of old, which he had spoken to Abraham. So this is, remember, they knew they couldn't leave Egypt for a certain time. So these men took upon themselves, it's time to leave Egypt. We're leaving. And these men girded themselves, and they put each man his sword at his side, and every man his armor upon him. And they trusted to their strength, and they went out together from Egypt with a mighty hand. Long story short, they brought no food, and they went to the Philistines, and they're like, hey, let us buy some food. And they're like, no. And they're like, well, we're just going to take it by force. And they went to fight, and the Philistines called for backup, and there was a massive war. And let's see, and the Philistines called for reinforcements. Now the souls of the children of Ephraim were exhausted with hunger and thirst, for they had eaten no bread for 3 days, and 40,000 men went forth from the cities of the Philistines, assistance of the men of Gath. And these men were engaged in battle with the children of Ephraim, and Yahweh delivered the children of Ephraim into the hands of the Philistines. And they smote all the children of Ephraim, all who had gone forth from Egypt. None were remaining, but 10 men who had run away from the engagement. To tell the story, of course. For this evil was from Yahweh against the children of Ephraim, for they transgressed the word of Yahweh in going forth from Egypt before the period had arrived, which Yahweh in the days of old had appointed to Israel. And this is important because there's certain doctrines going around in Torah community, online community, whatever, truther community, that we're supposed to like leave Egypt or leave Babylon, and how people are defining that is like by burning up our driver's license and burning up our social security cards and burning up birth certificates, and thereby thinking they escape Egypt and become free men. And now I'm here to tell you, people that are doing this are typically reclusing themselves from society and reclusing from being a light to the nations, which I do believe 100% we're called to be a light and to stay in the fight and to stay here in Egypt until he comes and physically gets us. Spiritually, Yahusha, our Passover lamb, has delivered us spiritually from the bondages of Satan, the dark forces, evil powers, principalities, those things. But physically, we're still in dispersion. We're still in Egypt per se. We're still in Babylon per se. And the story of these Ephraimites here is they're like, it's time, we're leaving. And they wanted to leave on their own accord and their own force by doing things that they know to do. However, the time had not arrived. And so I'm here to say, I don't think we're called to pull out of society completely and to stop being lights to the nations and to completely desist from society. I believe that we're supposed to be still engaged in society, because otherwise how can we be a light to them? So that's just my opinion. I think this is a really good lesson here. So all the Ephraimites, they left early, not on Yah's timing, and they are all destroyed. And of the Philistines there also fell a great many, about 20,000 men, and their brethren carried them and buried them in the cities. And the slain of the children of Ephraim remained forsaken in the valley of Gath for many days and years, and were not brought to burial, and the valley was filled with men's bones. Now, some people say this is the valley of dry bones in Ezekiel, but remember, that was the whole house of Israel. This is just 30,000 from Ephraim. And the men who had escaped from the battle came to Egypt and told all the children of Israel that all that had befallen them. And their father Ephraim mourned over them for many days, and his brethren came to console him. And he came unto his wife, and she bare a son, and he called his name Beriah, for she was unfortunate in his house. So confirmations that this story is true and not just a fairy tale. Here in Psalm 78, it says this, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn, Psalm 78, 8 through 14, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast, firm with Elohim. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of Elohim, and refused to walk in his Torah, and forgot in keeping the timeline that he gave to Abraham, his Torah, and forgot his works and his wonders they had showed them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as in a heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. Let's go to the Targums of Exodus 13, and verse 17 says this. Remember, this is when they're leaving Egypt. Remember, Yah was going to take them the shorter way, but he's like, no, I'm going to take them the longer way lest they see war. And it was when Pharaoh had released the people that Yahweh did not conduct them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that way was the near one or the closer one or shorter route. For Yahweh said, unless the people be affrighted in seeing their brethren who were killed in war. Now, the numbers here are different, but remember the stuff we talked about earlier, how we should have some patience with some, different things. 200,000 men of strength of the tribe of Ephraim, who took shields and lances and weapons of war, and went down to Gath to carry off the flocks of the Philistines, because they transgressed against the statute of the word of Yahweh, and went forth from Mitzrayim 3 years before the appointed end of their servitude. They were delivered into the hands of the Philistines, who slew them. These now this is the Targum that says either the dry bones, which is in Ezekiel, I think is incorrect, but nevertheless, this is a confirming witness to that story as a second witness. So let's go to, excuse me. All right, let's go back to, let's finish up chapter 2, verse 16. So remember now, so we got that gap here of where Moses went to Cush and then he went to Midian. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moshe stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, Jethro, their father, he said, how is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, a Mitzrite, an Egyptian, delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. Now some people ask, how did they mistake Moses for an Egyptian? Now some would argue, well, they probably had similar skin color. That seems to be the argument. However, I do believe that Egypt back then is like modern day America, and so it doesn't matter if you're white, black, or yellow, or whatever color, green. People recognize Americans by their accent, by their speech, language they speak. It's very apparent when an American goes to different countries, they don't, regardless of color or race, they're like, oh, you're an American. So I believe the same thing here in Egyptian, regardless of what skin color Moses was. I believe by his accent, because he grew up in Egypt, and maybe even the language he spoke, like, hey, an Egyptian delivered us. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah his daughter. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass, in the process of time, that the king of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of their bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto Elohim by reason of the bondage. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzchak, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Yisrael, and Elohim had respect unto them. All right, end of chapter 2. Just a couple passages here in Jasher. We're going to look at Jasher 76, 18 through 34. And they said, an Egyptian man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherds, and he drew up water for us and watered the flock. And Reuel said to his daughters, and where is he? Why have you left the man? And Reuel sent for him, and fetched him, and brought him home, and he ate bread with him. And Moses related to Reuel that he had fled from Egypt, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him, and had sent him away in peace with honor and with presents. And when Reuel had heard the words of Moses, Reuel said within himself, I will put this man into prison house, whereby I shall conciliate the children of Cush, for he has fled from them. And they took and put him into the prison house, and Moses was in prison 10 years. And whilst Moses was in the prison house, Zipporah the daughter of Reuel took pity over him, and supported him with bread and water all the time. And all the children of Israel were yet in the land of Egypt, serving all the Egyptians in all manner of hard work. And the hand of Egypt continued in severity over the children of Israel in those days. At that time Yahweh smote Pharaoh king of Egypt, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Israel was this plague at that time from Yahweh upon Pharaoh king of Egypt. For Yahweh had hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Israel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Israel. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before Yahweh, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. And when Yahweh had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wise men and sorcerers said unto him, now listen to this, nothing new under the sun again. We know that people in high places that worked literally for the devil and prolonged their lives through blood of children, it's nothing new. His wise men and sorcerers said to him that if the blood of the little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them, and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Israel to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force, and they brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day. And the physicians killed them, and applied them to the plague. Thus did they do all their days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh slew was 375. But Yahweh hearkened not to the physicians of the king of Egypt, and the plague went on increasing mightily. And Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with that plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Israel. So nothing new under the sun. You have the disappearing children in the world, and only Yah knows what they're doing with these poor children. And we can see that the people in the high places were doing disgusting things with their blood and trying to preserve their lives. But may Yahweh recompense them back then and today. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see, Jasher 77. Let's see. So here we go. Thus says Pharaoh, do your work each day, and finish your task, and observe the daily measure of bricks. Diminish not anything. And it shall come to pass that if you are deficient in your daily bricks, I will put your young children in their stead. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so in those days as Pharaoh had ordered them. And whenever any deficiency was found in the children of Israel's measure of their daily bricks, their taskmasters of Pharaoh would go to the wives of the children of Israel and take infants of the children of Israel to the number of bricks deficient. They would take them by force from their mothers' laps and put them in the building instead of the bricks, whilst their fathers and mothers were crying over them and weeping when they heard the weeping voices of their infants in the wall of the building. I could not even imagine. And the taskmasters prevailed over Israel, that the Israelites should place their children in the building, so that a man placed his son in the wall and put mortar over him, whilst his eyes wept over him, and his tears ran down upon his child. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so to the babes of Israel for many days, and no one pitied or had compassion over the babes of the children of Israel. And the number of all the children killed in the building was 270, some whom they had built upon instead of the bricks, which had been left deficient by their fathers, and some who they had drawn out dead from the building. And the labor imposed upon the children of Israel in the days of Adikam exceeded in hardship that which they performed in the days of his father. And the children of Israel sighed every day on account of their heavy work, for they had said to themselves, Behold, when Pharaoh shall die, his son will rise up and lighten our work. But they increased the latter work more than the former. And the children of Israel sighed at this, and their cry ascended to Elohim on account of their labor. And Elohim heard the voice of the children of Israel and their cry in those days. And Elohim remembered them to his covenant, which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob. And Elohim saw the burden of the children of Israel and their heavy work in those days, and he determined to deliver them. And Moses, the son of Amram, was still confined in the dungeon in those days in the house of Reuel the Midianite. It's Jethro. And Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, did support him with food secretly day by day. And Moses was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, which was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Egypt in the place of his father, Zipporah said to her father Reuel, No person inquires or seeks after the Hebrew man, whom you did bind in prison now 10 years. Now therefore, if it seem good in your sight, let us send and see whether he is living or dead. But her father knew not that she had supported him. And Reuel her father answered and said to her, Has ever such a thing happened, that a man should be shut up in prison without food for 10 years, and that he should live? And Zipporah answered her father, saying, Surely you have heard that the Elohim of the Hebrews is great and awful, and does wonderful things at all times. And he it was who delivered Abraham from Ur of the Chaldeans, and Isaac from the sword of his father, and Jacob from the angel of Yahweh, who wrestled with him at the ford of Yabuk. Also with this man has he done many things. He delivered him from the river in Egypt, and from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also he can deliver him from famine and make him live. The thing seemed good in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moses. And he saw, and behold, the man Moses was living in the dungeon, standing upon his feet, praising and praying to the Elohim of his ancestors. And Reuel commanded Moses to be brought out of the dungeon. So they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. And afterward Moses went into the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and there he prayed to Yahweh's Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that whilst he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahweh Elohim Sebaot was engraved thereon, written and developed upon the stick. And he read it, and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. And this is the stick with which all the works of our Elohim were performed, after he had created the heaven and the earth, and all the hosts of them, the seas, the rivers, and all their fishes. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand, and went and tilled the ground from which he was taken. And the stick came down to Noah, and was given to Shem and his descendants until it came into the hand of Abraham the Hebrew. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Yitzchak, he also gave him to this stick. And when Jacob fled to Padan Aram, he took it in his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Also, when he went down to Egypt, he took it into his hand and gave it to Joseph, one portion above his brethren, for Jacob had taken it by force from his brother Esau. And after the death of Joseph, the nobles of Egypt came into the house of Joseph, and the stick came into the hand of Reuel the Midianite, and when he went out of Egypt, he took it in his hands and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of the Kenites tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Zipporah, his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. I wonder if this is where they get the sword and the stone story from, because I believe this is older story and true, and I think that they just took this concept and like, hey, let's make a movie out of it. So that the stick remained planted in the garden of Reuel until he came who had a right to it and took it. And when Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moses, he wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. Okay. Now, I think we're done with all the long passages, the long chapters. I think we'll get back to more of like a Torah study here. So that's kind of all the backstory. And I don't know, for me, that enriches the whole story and makes it more understandable and, in my opinion, more believable. Not that it's not believable on its own, just all these stories that kind of make the story come alive. How about that? A little bit better wording there. So Exodus chapter 3. Now, Moshe kept the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and he came to the mountain of Elohim, even Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a thorn bush. And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush burned with fire, and the thorn bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, and why the thorn bush is not burnt. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called unto him out of the midst of the thorn bush, and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off your shoes from off your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohai of your father. Now remember, who appeared to him in the bush? It's the angel of Yahweh. If this was just a mere angel bringing a message from Yah, he would say, this is what Yahweh says. No, he said, I am the Elohai of your father, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanim, and the Chittim, and the Amorim, the Perizim, and the Chivim, and the Yebusim. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Yashrael is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Mitzrayim oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. And Moshe said unto Elohim, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim? And he said, Certainly I will be with you. And this shall be a sign unto you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Mitzrayim, ye shall serve Elohim upon this mountain. And Moshe said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come unto the children of Yashrael, and shall say unto them, The Elohai of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And Elohim said unto Moshe, Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya. I am that I am. So people will pause here and say, this is how we're supposed to address him. But if you keep reading, let's read. And he said, Thus shall you say unto the children of Yashrael, Ahaya, I am, has sent me unto you. And Elohim said moreover, so he continued to speak unto Moshe, This shall you say unto the children of Yisrael, Yahweh Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Jacob has sent me unto you. This is my name. Right here. Ahaya is a title. Yahweh is his name. This is my name forever, and this is my mention unto all generations. Go and gather the elders of Yisrael together and say unto them, Yahweh Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, of Yitzchak, and Jacob appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Mitzrayim. This is the promise given to Yosef. Elohim will surely visit you. Let's slow down for a second. There's a couple things. So let's talk about who was in the burning bush. Who was in the burning bush? It says the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him, right? 2nd Ezra 14. If you're new, 2nd Ezra was also included in the Apocrypha of the 1611 KJV Bible. On the third day, this is why he's talking to Ezra. On the third day, while I was sitting under an oak, behold, a voice came out of a bush opposite me and said, Ezra, Ezra. And I said, Here I am, master. And I rose to my feet. Then he said to me, I revealed myself in a bush and spoke to Moses when my people were in bondage in Egypt. Let's read another passage. Joshua 5. Because remember here, it said, don't come close, but put off your shoes from off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. This happens one at a time in the Bible. Joshua 5:13-15. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, No, but as captain of the host of Yahweh am I now come. Let me ask you a question. Who's the captain of the host of the armies? It's Messiah. Revelation 19 will tell you that. Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, What says my master unto his servant? So some people will ask, well, is Messiah to be worshipped? Listen, right here, Messiah did not rebuke him and say, get back up, I'm just an angel, or I'm just, this or this. He's Elohim. He's an eternal being. He's the Son of the Most High. And the captain of Yahweh's host said to Joshua, Loose your shoe from off your foot, for the place whereon you stand is holy. Sit apart. And Joshua did so. John 1:18, let's remember this. No man has seen Elohim, or let's say the Father, at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. So this passage from John 1:18 says no one's seen the Father at any time. He repeats it in, I think, John 6, 7, or 8, forgive me. Exodus 23:20-23. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place where I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. So this angel has the ability to pardon transgressions. The angel of Yahweh, again, who is in the burning bush, the angel of Yahweh. For my name is in him, Yahusha, Yahuwah, Yahusha. But if you shall indeed obey his voice, obey the voice of this angel, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto your enemies and an adversary unto your adversaries. And let me be clear here. I'm not equating Messiah with any of the other angels. He is the angel of Yahweh, like the most exalted. He is like he's the son of Yahweh's right hand. This is not bringing him down to like just an angel level. He's far above that. But one of his titles, Messiah has many titles. Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace, the Son of the Most High. The angel of Yahweh is one of his titles. The angel of his presence is another one of his titles. Isaiah 63 will tell you that the angel of Yahweh, or the angel of the presence, saved Yah's people. But if you shall indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto his enemies and an adversary unto his adversaries. And this makes sense because he's speaking the will of the Father, and nothing's changed. When he came in human form, when Messiah, the eternal being with the Father, came down and dwelt with men, he became a man, and he gave all glory to the Father. He's like, my doctrine's not my own. It's the Father's who gave it to me. For my angel shall go before you and bring you into the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, all the ites, and I'll cut them off. So this angel is literally the one guiding them. This angel is literally the pillar of fire. This angel is literally the one that appeared to Moses, the one that appeared to the burning bush, and so on and so forth. Jude 5, I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that, we'll just say, well, for now we'll say the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. So this is the Lord, it says here, led them out of Egypt. Well, who is this, the Lord? If you look at the Greek, it actually says, he names him by name. Of course, in the Greek is Iesous, which improperly is translated to this one. But literally, Jude recognized that it's Messiah that led them out of Egypt. And he is this angel of Yahweh. If you have more questions about this, we have a video called The Identity of the Angel of Yahweh, YHWH. The Identity of the Angel of YHWH. So, Targums 3:14 says thus. So remember, this is that same passage. It says, and the word of Yahweh said to Moshe, right? The Messiah. The Messiah spoke to Moshe and said, right? It's just another witness. That's why I like the Aramaic. It just shows Messiah plainly. Also, here, it says here, moreover, he said, I am the Elohai of your father, the Elohai of Abraham, so the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is repeated a little bit later in Matthew. Matthew 22:31-32, it says, but as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which is spoken unto you by Elohim, saying, I am the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Jacob. Elohim is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. And what's really interesting is a stark contrast between, it's like you have this battle that's getting ready to enrage between Yah and Pharaoh. And we see that Yah is the Elohim of the living, but Pharaoh, as we'll learn here from Jasher 14, is a title for the God of the dead, or the taxer or the Lord of the dead. Jasher 14:27-33. This is a story about a man named Rechion who came to Egypt broke, but ended up being the king of Egypt. We'll skip all that story. It says, and the king answered and said to Rechion, thy name shall no more be called Rechion, but Pharaoh shall be your name, since you did exact a tax from the dead. And he called his name Pharaoh. So there's a lot of different translations or interpretations of what Pharaoh really means, but it's literally the taxer of the dead is why his name. And the king and his subjects loved Rechion for his wisdom, and they consulted with all the inhabitants of Egypt to make him prefect under the king. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and its wise men did so, and it was made a law in Egypt. And they made Rechion Pharaoh, prefect under Osiris, king of Egypt. Interesting. And Rechion, Pharaoh, governed over Egypt, daily ministering justice to the whole city. But Osiris, the king, would judge the people of the land one day in the year when he went out to make his appearance. And anyways, let's see. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Rechion, Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every king that should reign over them and their seed in Egypt Pharaoh. Therefore, all the kings that reigned in Egypt from that time forward were called Pharaoh unto this day. And that, again, that name was given because he was master or lord or taxer of the dead. So you have the Elohim of the living versus the Elohim of the dead. And we see who wins that one, right? Praise Yah. Also, same thing in the last days. You have the kingdom of light versus the kingdom of darkness. In Revelation 16, it says, in the fifth angel... Revelation 16:10, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, versus the kingdom of light. This is Isaiah 2. This is the establishment of the house of Yahweh. It shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the tops of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. But here at the end it says, O house of Jacob, come ye and let us walk in the light of Yahweh. The light is going to irradiate from that kingdom. So we have a kingdom of darkness and a kingdom of light, versus just in the same way, you have a kingdom of evil and a kingdom of good, or a kingdom of the living and a kingdom of the dead. Last thing I want to point out here in chapter 3 with this interaction here, it says... And Elohim moreover said to El Moshe, thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my mention into all generations. Now, I will say this, just like I mentioned earlier with the calendar, the topic of the pronunciation of the name can be a topic that people dote on. What that means is that's their whole life. That's all they want to preach about is the name. The name is super important, and I'm going to stand firm right here and say, I stand for his name. I'm not interested really in calling him titles and all these kind of things. If other people feel led to do so, fine. But I'm going to stay here on this post and say, I'm going to stand for his name. Because he says, this is my name for all generations. And there's a concerted effort to diminish his name. In the Bible alone, his name was recorded over 6,000 times. And over 6,000 times, his name was translated to the Lord. It diminished his name. Judaism does it. Christianity does it. Christianity does not call him by his name. They call him by a title. Judaism refuses to call him by his name, but by titles. It gets so bad that I remember growing up in Judaism, you couldn't literally even write the word God. The little G-O-D, you have to write G/D. Talk about diminishing his name. Now, I'll also say that his name is his character. It's everything revealed about him. It's his honor. It's his reputation. But he has a name. Just like he gives us all a name, he has a name. Jeremiah 23:27, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal, for Lord. That's what that passage literally says. And I'm not saying if people call him Lord, they're calling him Baal. That's not what I'm saying. But let's not diminish his name. And I know there's different interpretations, so I'm not getting on anybody for any different variation of interpretation. All I'm saying is it's time to start calling him by name, which the religions have diminished. Because I'll show you some scriptures that says he wants you to. Exodus 9:16. And in very deed, for this cause have I raised you up, to show my power in you, to show you my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. Now, of course, that's also his fame, his reputation, but his name. Psalm 91:14, because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. John 17:6, if you want to say Messiah didn't care about that. I have manifested your name unto the men which you gave me out of the world. Thine they were, and you gave them to me, and I have kept thy word. Messiah declared his name to his disciples. Malachi 3:16, this is my favorite one. I think this was Alan Horvath's favorite one too. I think he was one of the pioneers of the name in this movement. Malachi 3:16-18. Then they that feared Yahweh spoke often one to another, and Yahweh hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yahweh and that thought upon his name. I don't know about you. I want to be in that book. And they shall be mine, says Yahweh Sabaoth. In the day when I make up my jewels, I will spare them, as a man spares his own son that serves him. Then ye shall return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serves Elohim and him that serves him not. Psalm 96, 1-3. Oh, sing unto Yahweh a new song. Sing ye unto Yahweh all the earth. Sing unto Yahweh, bless his name. Show forth his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the heathen, his wonders among the people. Psalm 100. Make a joyful noise, those of us who are musicians. Amateur musicians, not magicians. It's wicked. Make a joyful noise. So we may not play very well, but we're going to try. We're going to make a joyful noise unto Yahweh, all ye lands. Serve Yahweh with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know you that Yahweh, he is Elohim. It is he that has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, into his courts with praise. The book of Hebrews says we can enter boldly into his court by his throne, by the blood of Messiah. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. Praise you, O Yahweh. For Yahweh is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations. How about this one? I love this one. Proverbs 30, verse 4. Who has ascended up into heaven, or descended? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has bound the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? And what is his son's name, if you can tell? Important stuff. Is it stuff to divide over and destroy people over the pronunciation of the name? No. Is it so important you have to beat people over the head? You're calling him Lord, he hates you. No. Just be a good example and be like, and just show people how it's done. Say, I love calling upon the name. I love praying to Yahweh. I love singing songs to Yahweh. I love sharing with people my testimony of what Yahweh has done for me. Be an example, not a Torah terrorist. Okay? Okay. All right. So, also, one last thing here in chapter 3. He says, remember the angel of Yahweh says, who is Elohim, who is, right? Said unto Moshe, Ahayar, Asher Ahaya, I am that I am. Thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you. Now listen, what did Messiah declare to be? That same entity in the burning bush. John 8, 56-59, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Then said the Jews unto him, you are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Yahushua said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. He would have been, in Hebrew, he would have said, Aha, yeah. And then then they took stones to cast at him. But Yahushua hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so he passed by. So that's what he declared. Okay. Here, so we stopped here at Exodus 3:16. Let's finish chapter 3. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of the Mitzrayim into the land of the Canaanim, and the Hittim, and the Amorim, and the Perizim, and the Hivim, and the Yebusim, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Yashrael, unto the king of Mitzrayim, and you shall say unto them, Yahweh Elohai of the Ivrim has met with us, and now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh Eloheinu. And I am sure that the king of Mitzrayim will not let you go. Nope, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim, and it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and of raiment, and he shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and he shall spoil the Mitzrayim. Now, I'll also say this. Some of the same doctrines I've heard about people burning their social security cards and driver's licenses and all these different things and coming out of Babylon, as they say. I believe coming out of Babylon and Egypt is coming out of their false religions and false pagan ways and coming back to Yah's ways. And being obedient to people, of course, being obedient up to a certain point until it makes us break Torah. For example, Daniel, probably a very obedient citizen in Babylon. He didn't go around stoning witches and all these different things. But when they told him to forsake the Torah of the Most High, which is to forsake him to pray, he's like, I don't think so. When he told Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to bow down to the statue, they said, absolutely not. Were they probably very lawful citizens until that point in Babylon? I think so. But my point is, people take this passage here, and when the Israelites leave Egypt, of course, they get all kinds of riches and jewels. And some people use this doctrine to say, well, we're just going to spoil Mitzrayim. We're going to go steal. We're going to go to Walmart, and we're going to go fill our bags up, and we're going to steal. And completely wrong. And this is, I think, also in the same line of thinking as these Ephraimites who wanted to deliver themselves out of Egypt before its time. So just some things that I've seen in my short time here. Exodus 4. Let's finish up. Where are we at in time? Okay, 2 hours and 20 minutes. All right, we'll probably go a little quicker here. And Moshe answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice, for they will say, Yahweh has not appeared unto you. And Yahweh said unto him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moshe fled from before it. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, Put forth your hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahweh Elohai of their fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Jacob has appeared unto you. Remember, the Jews require a sign. And Yahweh's like, all right, I'm going to give you a sign. And Yahweh said furthermore unto him, Put now your hand into your bosom. And he put his hand to his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, it was leprous as snow. And he said, Put your hand into your bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass that they will not believe you, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto your voice, that you shall take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land. And the water which you take out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moshe said unto Eliyahu, O my Adonai, I'm not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since you have spoken unto your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And this is interesting because Yah seems to always pick, or Yahushua seems to pick people, the less likely people. Think about it here. I mean, Moshe, he wasn't even part of the whole Israelite thing, really. He grew up in a house of royalty, and then he became king of Cush, and then he was having a pretty decent life of just being a shepherd and married to Zipporah and had a good life there, and he was happy. And then, you know, he didn't talk very well. He stuttered. But yet Yah picked him as opposed to all the millions or hundreds of thousands in Egypt. Why? And then, you know, he picked David, the least of his brethren, the youngest. And he picked Gideon, who was in the smallest tribe and in the poorest household in Manasseh. Why did he pick fishermen that were not learned men? And it's kind of interesting. Does that story repeat? Is Yah raising up nobodies in these last days to be lights unto the nations? I think so. I think you'll find that the same is true. And Yahweh said unto him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I Yahweh? And also, he doesn't pick people that are eager to be like the leader, eager to be rulers over people. You meet people like, even Gideon was like, why would you pick me? I'm like a nobody. Moshe's like, why would you pick me? I'm like a nobody. And many others. Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. And he said, O my Adonai, send I pray you by the hand of him who you send. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Moshe, and he said, Is not Aharon the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he comes forth to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak unto him, and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman unto the people, and he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of Elohim. And you shall take this rod in your hand, wherewith you shall do signs. And speaking about signs, in the book of 2 Esdras, chapter 1, it says that he prophesies about a people that have seen no signs, have seen no real prophets, have not seen any manifestations of angels, have not seen any manifestations of him, but yet believe. And he rewards these people richly. Also, he talks to Peter. He said, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. But blessed are those who have not seen and believe. And I believe that that's our generation. We have almost every, and if you haven't seen the video we did, this is a study I did at one of our local fellowships 2 weeks ago called A Chosen Generation or something like that. And here's a generation that has all the world at their fingertips and has sin and disobedience at their fingertips. Even modern-day religion has disobedience at their fingertips. But yet people are like, I'm good. I'm going to walk in the way of the Most High's way. I'm going to follow Messiah as he walked. With the things he did, I'm going to do. And I think Yahweh has some great favor on people like this in the last days. Exodus 14, And Moshe went and returned to Yitro his father-in-law, and said to him, Let me go, I pray you, and return unto my brethren which are in Mitzrayim, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moshe, Go in peace. And Yahweh said unto Moshe in Midian, Go, return into Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead which sought your life. And Moshe took his woman and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hands. That's what we read about in Jasher. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, When you go to return into Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I will harden his heart. Now, some people are like, Yah hardened his heart. He didn't even have a chance. So how can you even blame Pharaoh? If you look at that word harden, it actually means strengthen. So it's going to strengthen where his heart already is. Strengthen him in the plans he already has. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And you shall say unto Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn. And it came to pass by the way at the inn that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. This is so random. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, Surely a bloody man you are to me. So he let him go. And then she said, A bloody man you are because of the circumcision. This makes Zipporah seem like a feisty woman. But if you read the Jasher portion, which I think because of time we're going to skip, but for those of you at home that want to do further study, some of the passages we're not going to read today is chapter 78 of Jasher, 7 through 16, chapter 79, 1 through 12. We're also going to read 79, 21 through 31, or we're going to skip that just for time's sake. But long story short, in the Jasher portion, it shows that Zipporah saw that an angel of Yahweh was getting ready to kill Moses because he transgressed the circumcision by not circumcising Gershom, because Jethro was like, hey, don't do this, okay? And Moses was like, okay. But Zipporah stepped in and just did it, and like threw the foreskin down and was like, see, we did it. And then the angel of Yahweh was like, okay. Or the destroyer. I think it was the destroyer. Anyways, but it shows that Zipporah is actually a very wise woman and righteous in all her ways. This version makes her seem like she's like rude and snappy at Moses. And Yahweh said to Aharon, Go into the wilderness to meet Moshe. And he went and met him in the mount of Elohim and kissed him. And Moshe told Aharon all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe and Aharon went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Yashrael. And Aharon spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken unto Moshe, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they had heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Yashrael, and that he had looked upon their affliction, Then they bowed their heads and worshipped. We're going to finish up chapter 5 and then chapter 6, verse 1, and we'll be done. And don't forget, if you're sticking around, I'd love to share some stuff about some news coming up about the ministry. Kind of an important announcement. And afterward, Moshe and Aharon went in and told Pharaoh, "Thus says Yahweh Elohai of Yashrael, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Yashrael go? I know not Yahweh, neither will I let Yashrael go." And they said, "The Elohai of the Ephraim has met with us. Let us go, we pray you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto Yahweh Eloheinu, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with sword." And the king of Mitzrayim said unto them, "Wherefore do you, Moshe and Aharon, let the people from their works get you into your burdens?" And Pharaoh said, "Behold, the people of the land are many, and ye make them to rest from their burdens." And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, "Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the tale of the bricks which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish anything thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim. Let their more work be laid upon them, that they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words." And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers spoke as the people, saying, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, get you straw where you can find it, yet nothing of your work shall be diminished." So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, "Fulfill your works, your daily tasks, as when there was straw." And the officers of the children of Yashrael, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten, and demanded, "Wherefore have ye not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today, as heretofore?" Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying, "Wherefore do you deal thus with your servants? There is no straw given unto your servants, and they say to us, Make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten, but the fault is with your own people." But he said, "You are idle. You are idle. Therefore you say, Let us go and do sacrifice to Yahweh. Go therefore now, and work, for there shall no straw be given you. Yet ye shall deliver the tale of bricks." And the officers of the children of Yashrael did see that they were in evil case, after it was said, "Ye shall not diminish anything from your bricks of your daily task." And they met Moshe and Aharon, who stood in the way, as they came forth from Pharaoh. And they said unto them, "Yahweh look upon you, and judge, because you have made our Savior to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword into their hands, to slay us." And Moshe returned unto Yahweh and said unto Adonai, "Why have you so evil entreated this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all." Chapter 6, verse 1, and we'll finish here. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Now ye shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand he shall let them go, and with a strong hand he shall drive them out of his land." So with this, let's not be too far from considering that before the deliverance comes, if it's in our generation, or even if we're here to prepare our children's generation or our grandchildren, that it may get harder until that very last second that he comes to get us. It may be closing in on us, and we're like, oh, but we trust in him, and he will deliver. And that's the moral of the story. So with that, let's pray, and I want to do a couple announcements. Father, we just come before you and thank you for your word, which is a light to our feet. Father, continue to open our eyes to the wonderful things written in your Torah, that we may grow thereby. Father, open our eyes to the words of your prophets, the writings, the gospels of our Messiah, the letters, Father, that we may grow and just be your assembly, Father, to walk in righteousness, to walk in spirit and truth before you. Father, help us to love you and love people fervently, without any guile in our hearts. Trim us, be the gardener, Father. Yahusha is the vine, and let us be the branches. Let us bear fruit. In Yahusha's mighty name. Amen. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom. So a couple announcements. Number one, we have Torah. The Pesach registration is up and about. It'll be in the description box. Also, something that myself and some of the elders and leadership in the local congregation and feast days have been talking about is we have a vision of, we were gifted a very large revival tent. It's 160 foot by 80 foot. And we have a vision of taking this thing across the country to do two things: to unite Hebrews, to recognize we have small differences and that we should be united under Messiah, even amongst our differences, and to gather people together in the localities wherever we go to make sure that people that don't have any fellowship can be united with local fellowships there, so they can continue to be watered with fellowship in weekly assemblies. Also, when we go into these cities, we also want to share the gospel, to do the Great Commission, to preach to atheists, to regular Sunday Christians, to Jews, whoever, and to show them the love of Messiah. We're going to do this through with food, with song, with music via Left and Right Ministries and maybe other people. We're going to do it through teachings, through myself and others, and we look to do this all around the country. And so this my recent trip to New Hampshire in Maine made me recognize this. I met a wonderful man, Brother Guerin, and his family. They had no fellowship, and we were able to connect them with the local fellowship there, and it just rejuvenated my desire for our desire, myself and the leadership, to unify Hebrews amongst our differences and to preach the good news. Like kind of two main themes of bringing this tent around the country. And so we've got a tent, we've got a truck, and we've got a trailer to hold it, and we've got people that are ready to do this. And so I'm reaching out to you, those of you that have assemblies. Praise Yah, we have solid leadership established at our local fellowship that I am now ready to be more mobile and to go across the country. So if you have fellowships and that you want to be part of this idea or want to learn more, at least maybe we can get on the phone or whatever. Myself and Lyndon and myself, my wife, Lyndon and his wife, we are looking to travel and to scope out areas that we can bring this tent to do revivals, real revivals, declaring his name, singing to his name, blessing his name, baptisms, real music, real teachings, and this is our heart, and this is what we feel led to do. And so that's the future of the ministry. Of course, nothing's going to change about the online ministry, our local fellowship here in Southwest Missouri, but this is the next phase of what we're getting ready to do. And so if you have a fellowship or you think that this might be a good idea for your area, please reach out to me. Obviously, if people have land that we can put this tent, it's going to greatly reduce our costs when we go into an area, because we know that if you rent a large facility for a couple weeks, you're looking at like 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 grand. We don't have that kind of money. But anyways, if anybody likes, this is the quick version of this idea. There's so much more to it. We've had dozens of meetings, hour-long meetings about this, and have dozens of pages of notes of what we want to do and the different things we want to accomplish when we go into a city. And I have been meeting with some assemblies across the country that are ready for this, but we want to reach out, and anyone that wants to assist us in finding the right locations for this or whatever, please contact me. Hello at Parable of the Vineyard. Remember, Vineyard has V-I-N-E. You can see it on the logo up here. Vineyard. The email is hello@parableofthevineyard.com. And with that, I just want to say blessings and shalom to Dave Courier and his family, to Guerin and his family, to Bruce and his family, Sister Devin, and many of the wonderful people I met in New Hampshire in Maine. Love you all and look forward to coming out there. And we're definitely, well, Yah willing, we're going to be bringing that tent up there to the northeast. But anyways, with that being said, this has been a long Torah portion. Yah bless you all. We're going to do a good old-fashioned Song of Moshe to get you ready for Pesach that's coming up soon. Again, if you want to join us in Lebanon, we'll be camping out for like 9 days in Southwest Missouri, Lebanon, Missouri. If you want more information, look in the description box below. Shabbat shalom and blessings.
I sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my deliverance. He is my El, and I praise him, Elohim of my father, and I exalt him. Yahweh is a man of battle, Yahweh is his name. He has cast Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea, and his chosen officers are drowned in the sea of reeds. The depths covered them, they went down to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, has become great in power. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, has crushed the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you pulled down those who rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath, it consumes them like stubble. And with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up. The floods stood like a wall, the depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil, my being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them, they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahuwah, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great in Kodeshah, awesome in praises, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your kindness, you led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength, you guided them to your Kodesh dwelling. Peoples heard, they trembled, anguish gripped the inhabitants of Pelasheth. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled, the mighty men of Moab. Trembling grips them, all the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Fear and dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. They are as silent as a stone. Until your people pass over, O Yahuwah. Until the people whom you have bought pass over. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahuwah, which you have made for your own dwelling, the Mikdash, O Yahuwah, which your hands have prepared. Yahweh reigns forever and ever.